one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground. Whoa. What up, folks? I remember to put the sound on and the Twitter spaces up. I'm getting a hang of this. Damn, it takes so long for me to get this shit right. Dude, I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe it's Thursday already. This week went real fast. Next thing you know, it's going to be the new year, but I'm freaking amped. It is cold here. Cold as in it was 58 degrees today, dog. 50s is frigid.
Dang, are you okay?
In Southern California. Okay? Holy shit, it's cold. But I'm doing good, man. I'm ready to rock. I got my Diet Dr. Pepper from Chick-fil-A, and I'm ready to kick some ass. How you doing, Maddie?
I'm doing good. My video's frozen on the stream, but other than that, we're good to go.
Your video is frozen. Now I'm seeing that. I don't know what happened there.
No worries.
Damn, you're looking good, though.
In case you were wondering, though, I do have hair on the back of my head.
You do have a thick candy shell.
Yeah, I do have a thick candy shell.
How was your day,
fantastic. Bro? Oh, man, great day. Great day. Light day. It was you know, that weird like Thanksgiving, people travel and whatnot, so not as many clients as normal, But that made for an easy day. Sun was shining, beautiful sunset, and ate a good dinner. I mean, dude, here's the part I'm excited about. I do agree with you though, man. I cannot believe it is Thursday already. Like, what happened to this week?
Yeah,
I feel like Thanksgiving was yesterday, and it was a
it was.
week ago.
Yep.
And that's a sign, because Christmas is like tomorrow.
I
Like,
know.
it's
I'm
just gonna happen.
freaking
We're
jazzed.
gonna blink, and then it's next year. So, and I'm excited because 2023 is the year of midlife crisis.
Oh,
It's gonna be silly.
bro. 2023 MLC is coming out of their shell,
People
baby.
aren't ready. They are not ready. So, we are gonna be coming at y'all like a spider monkey, and
Ooh, there you
we're
go.
ready
You
for it.
sound a lot better once you did that.
Oh, a little adjustment. There you go.
Oh, thanks for
That's
that.
real nice. Okay.
Yeah, you sound great now. All right, I'll
Yeah,
let
man,
you
I'm
do
good.
the
How about you,
intros,
man? Tell me
brother.
about. I mean, other than it being cold, did you have a good day?
Yeah, dude, I'm ready. I'm amped to do this stream as always, and I'm amped to fall asleep to Call of Duty and wake up and do it all over again. Oh, I'm going golfing tomorrow. I'm excited about that. It might be
Oh, where are you
cold.
playing?
This little country club place up the road. I forget the name of it already, but it's
Man,
off season here, so you can actually play pretty nice golf courses for pretty cheap.
dang. These are first world problems, folks.
Yep, first
Mike
world
is going to
problems.
play golf at a country club that he can't even remember the name because he goes to so many of them, and it's going to be beautiful. And no, that's a fantastic thing, man. That's for sure. How's Modern Warfare doing, man? Are you into it? Are you
Dude,
are you completely converted to the new one?
I am all the way in on Modern Warfare. I've golded out all assault rifles, battle rifles, SMGs, and I'm working on the shotguns right now.
Whoa!
Yeah,
All
man.
right.
Dude, you want to
What
talk
is your
about?
play time on just this new one?
I don't think it
Is it?
calculates it for you. Um,
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. But, bro, it's back to what we were talking about. Dude, this comes from me and you playing Final Fantasy in the basement, smashing Mountain Dew, eating pizza, and just grinding for experience points. It's just something about it. It just soothes my soul, bro. There it is. You got a Mountain Dew alcoholic energy drink. Or is that just
No, this is not alcoholic. This is just regular Mountain Dew energy drink.
nice? All right, bro, let's do some
Yeah,
introductions.
man.
Let's get the
Let's
show on the
do
road.
it. By the way, Spazoink Star, we see you.
Yeah,
Love
we
you.
do see you. Welcome to the show. We're always happy to see our midlife fan. We freaking love you. And
All
Matt's
right.
drinking Mountain Dew Energy.
Yes. All right. So it's gonna be a good show, folks. What we want to do is we want to take a second and make sure, at the beginning of these shows, one of the things we were looking back at previous shows, and we're like, we would introduce people and be like, "Hey, welcome to the show," and we get into our question, and we realized no one knew who we were talking to, and that's never good. So I want to take a second to introduce our guest, Ufa. Said that correctly, and it'll make more sense because the project. Oh boy, I'm gonna mess it up. AaaFU, was that right? Say it real quick, Ufa. Is that right?
AFU, almost
AaaFU. I knew I knew it.
Which
Man.
is short for fuck you, right?
A fuck you. Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
fuck you. Hey,
Yes,
fuck you.
yes.
Someone just
Okay,
asked in
AFU,
chat, why is a
AFU, okay.
PFP flicking me off?
Yes. Okay, so now it makes a little more sense. See, a little bit of context, right? So AaaFU is the project. UFA, project founder and dev. Okay, so let's talk about this. Who is the mysterious and the
Oofa.
talented UFA? Let me tell you. Ufa studied civil engineering, right? And not just civil engineering, but he studied civil engineering in Brazil. We're going to get to a little fun fact about Brazil in a second here. But studied civil engineering in Brazil. He's in Panama now. He actually was from Croatia eventually. Because of all the moving, this guy speaks 4.5 languages. 4.5, you say? What does that mean? Speaks 4 languages fluently. He is learning Chinese. Now, let's just take a second here and absorb that, okay? Already speaks 4 languages and is learning one of the hardest languages to learn, and he's a software developer. This guy's sharp, okay? He's been a software developer his entire career. He's got 5 to 6 years in the crypto investing space. 3+ of which he has been a Solidity dev. Now, why is that important? Because we've been in this space, many people came in this space, and a lot of our fans have come into this space. You were introduced around that hate beast time. So you've been in it for about a year. Here's the thing. This person's been coding in Solidity for 3 times that. So this is not a noob. This is not somebody that got in at Hate Beast and was like, you know what? I'm going to start my own project and learn how to code. This guy's been coding for a very long time. He knows what he's doing, and he's bringing to that all of that expertise and knowledge, and that is what put him in a position to be a founder and a dev. There's another founder. He'll talk about that, but a founder and dev of AaaFU. AaaFU. Yes. Just
Yeah,
said it.
you
Did I
nailed
say
it,
it okay?
bro.
Okay, we nailed it. So,
AFU. Just think
but
AFU.
that's right. That's right. Exactly. The fun fact is, though, you can't study civil engineering in Brazil and not get down on a little bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And
Matt
you
was
know that
excited
warms
when he
my
heard
heart.
this. He was
You know that
pumped.
warms my heart. I love martial arts. Brazilian jiu-jitsu is fantastic. I've been doing it since I was 13. It's a fantastic style. It's a good thing to do. I will tell you, one of the coolest things for just like mental discipline, wusa, conditioning, keeps you in great shape, teaches you the concept of it's okay to lose. But this guy, man, he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. If you know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, you know that this dude will ball you up and tie you in your knot. So not only is he smart, he will wreck you in the streets. Ufa, we're excited to have you. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, and thank you for that amazing introduction. I was not expecting. That was
Oh
beautiful.
man, you're the superstar. I'm just reading off stats, man.
Yeah, man. This
Yeah.
is your platform, baby. Get excited.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the introduction.
Sure.
Love it, and like I'm excited to be here. Like, you guys seem like really genuine guys. We had a small conversation beforehand, and you guys are very cordial, polite, smart. So I think it's going to be interesting, especially the long format, right? You guys mentioned
Yeah.
it's like usually 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, man. We don't
got
screw around here. We
You
do it the
got it.
right way. You're doing a 15-minute conversation. You really haven't peeled back the layers of the onion appropriately. Maddie and I are experts at that. So, UFU, not to be confused with AFU.
It's Ufa, bro.
Shit, I told you. People, I am going to screw this up so many times tonight. Ufa, are you ready for the world famous midlife crisis question? And that is, bro, and like Maddie said, man, Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3. We know that you're kind of partially doxxed. Of course, do not share anything you don't feel comfortable sharing. But I feel like if you're using your entire lifespan, you got plenty of stuff to share. Give us the Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3 of how you got to the seat that you are sitting in today.
Sure, and happy to do it. Matty mentioned some of the details. I'll be repeating some of those, plus a little bit of extra context here and there, so everything fits in. So, originally from Panama, whereas my parents' heritage is from Croatia and Serbia. So I've kind of lived a little bit in a few different places, but started off in Panama. Then I lived for a period of time in Croatia, eventually came back to Panama. In, I guess, high school, I was a little bit of the athletic, but also a little bit of geeky guy, a little bit of combination of the two. And eventually was interested in, well, I've been developing my whole life. Started off with doing a full stack and then making little console applications for little video games that I was playing. And yeah, eventually got into civil engineering. Started my civil engineering studies in Panama, but then I ended up moving to Brazil to study over there. And a little detail over there, I didn't know Brazilian Portuguese, though I did know Spanish. In Brazil, you have something called the vestibular, which is an entrance test that you have to do before you enter a university. So I had to kind of learn Portuguese, or enough Portuguese to do the test in 3 weeks. Though Spanish and Portuguese is really similar. So just to be fair, I had like this big head start. I think it was like 2 weeks. The 2 weeks before I went to Brazil, I would like put on something called Pimsleur, which is a language learning app when I'm driving the car. And eventually, when I got to Brazil, I had a tutor help me, and it was just enough so that once the vestibular happened, I could use my Spanish plus the context of the Portuguese to pass the test and enter. And yeah, developer my whole life, studying civil engineering. I never ended up practicing civil engineering just because I love the math, but I didn't necessarily want to go and supervise, the construction of a building, or maybe do the plans of how the infrastructure, the beams are going to be designed or whatnot. It's not the life that I would necessarily be happy with.
Yep.
Crypto, however, already, people were talking about it for a while, and I started to dabble in that and loved it. Some of my friend developers also dabbled in crypto. One in particular, a great friend of mine called Danny, he was already developing in Web3, and so the crypto investment part was probably 5 years ago, maybe leading towards 6. I'd have to check exactly when the time was.
Yeah.
But maybe 3.5 years ago, my friend Danny decided to nudge me in the direction of also developing, and it made sense. Already investing and already developing in other areas, so everything just fits. And yeah, it's been some years. This year in particular, with a friend of mine, Didi, she's amazing. We got together and started planning. Okay, if at any point you want to do something Web3, I mean, now is the time. People are going to look back 5 years from now. They're going to look back. Hey, I wish I was there 5 years ago when everything was still raw, where things were still taboo. So not everybody wants to join in. So there's more opportunity in that little scuffed phase. So yeah, we came together. We made a plan that we think would work, and would love to talk about that more. And it's kind of how we got to this point that we are now. Yeah. That's I hope, is that good? Was that a good description?
Oh, you're in trouble, buddy. You're in
So
trouble,
here's
Matty.
yeah.
Matty,
Yeah,
I'll let
So
you give
listen,
the review.
here's what just happened. We asked for Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3, and let me tell you what's gonna here. Here's what's I'm gonna go here. I get this a lot from people. I've never seen Star Wars. Where should I start? Right? And here's what happens. If you go on YouTube, you can find these people that what they'll do is they'll say, here's Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3 in 5 minutes. And it's just like a little bit of an abridged version to give you this is what you need to know so you can go right into Episode 4 and know what's going on. Here's the problem, man. This isn't the abridged version show. That's not what we're going for, man. We're going to need to dive a little bit deeper. I'm excited because you've told us a little bit about what you're doing in the background here. We're going to extract some stuff from that because I feel like we got the YouTube version of episode 1, 2, 3, 4, but we need the real deal, man. This is long form content. So we're going to ham you with a few more questions. We're going to need some more from it. Let me ask you this. Before civil engineering, you said you were a dev, you were working on I think you said full stack and doing some applications for console gaming, things like that. Tell me more about childhood, growing up with parents that are from Croatia. What did they do? Were they entrepreneurs? Were they engineer? What were they develop? Were they into computers? What did they do?
My dad has always been a businessman his entire life. He works a lot
Okay.
in real estate. Panama actually has are you familiar with Panama, by the way?
I mean, other than knowing where it is on a map, that's about as far as I get.
I'm familiar
there's a
with the
canal
brand
there.
Panama Jack. That's how
So for-
familiar I am with Panama.
It's fantastic.
Oh shit, that was an American
it.
joke, I guess.
Tell me what we need to know about Panama.
Sure. So, like, a lot of people don't know as much as maybe they should about Panama. It's a great place. Most people hear about the Panama Canal, one of
Yep.
the two most important canals in the world.
Yep.
And because of the Panama Canal, you have a lot of business, a lot of trade happening here. As a
Okay.
result of that, the U.S. has a military base over here. There's a lot of Americans over here. We actually use the dollar. Oh, technically, it's the Balboa, but it's pegged 1-to-1 with the US dollar. So you'll see the US dollar circulating. That's what
Got
we're
it.
using. There's some extra coins that have a little different faces mixed in with the US coins.
Okay.
So as a result of that, it's also become a banking hub, and real estate has also been booming. So you might have heard,
Okay.
unfortunately, of the Panama Papers. Um, this is a little bit of a stain, if you will, where I don't know how many, has it been 8 years, 10 years? I don't know when this happened. A lot of notable politicians around the world had their assets in Panama, or like there were some papers that leaked because it's a banking hub.
Mhm.
And then that gave a little bit of a stain. But I
Yeah.
guess it's one thing that points to, all the banking infrastructure we have over here. So as a result of that, the properties are looking pretty good price wise. And like my dad being a businessman, that's one of the reasons why he came over
Yeah.
here, and things have
Bet.
been going great. So that's some context as to like
Got
why
it.
Panama, right? And from there, I spawned, if we're
Yeah.
into the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, do I continue from there, or
Oh
Yeah,
should we?
so
yeah.
so
Oh
help us
yeah.
out. Because, like, let's shape this now, because what you have is you have a father who's an entrepreneur who
Mm,
recognizes opportunity and is willing to move his family there to be able to take advantage of it.
Right.
How is that, talk to us. Like, there's a lot of people who are very successful because they had parents who imparted a lot of
mm,
skills, mindset, habits, and a lot. It's not strange, for example, to meet people who are very successful business owners, and it's because their parents were also business owners, or one of them was, or whatever it might be, and that imparted a lot of that kind of, not just entrepreneurial spirit, but also, you learn what matters. What do I need to succeed in business? Do you feel like you got that? Was that something that you feel like influenced you as a child, as you were learning what to do, and as you found things that you enjoyed?
for sure, definitely from my father. And also, when you're moving from country to country,
Mhm.
there you learn some hard lessons. Like you have to make new friends any new place you go, right? Like at a young age. So
Yes.
little details like that. Also, I think at least for my parents, a little sense of realism. Like not everything is as beautiful as it seems.
Ooh,
So
I like that one a
I
lot.
like
Could
that.
dig down on that a little bit. Is that from the moving around multiple, or were your parents constantly trying to teach you that lesson through different life experiences?
a little bit of both. You move around, you see different people behaving in different ways. In some countries, they might be more, what's the word that I'm looking for? They might be more cordial, and everything seems nicer. But then you go to another country, and you see people trying to scam you all the time. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, having a little bit of perspective is useful. There are some things we take for granted, and other people don't because their situations are different. So yeah, I would say the moving around helped put that into perspective from a young age.
Do you think it helped equip you? Because, one of the cool things about Web3 is it's really shrunk the world down. And here's the thing, globalization's been happening for a long time. Web 2 has done that. But man, I have to admit, I mean, it's very easy to stay insulated when people don't move around. And I'll use myself as an example. I mean, I moved around within the US a little bit, but I mean, still really just in the East Coast, and really just like Northeast, to be honest. Um, Mike has at least moved across coast, but like, you've moved internationally, and I
Mm,
didn't really get exposed to the idea of, man, people are all around the world doing this, quite frankly, until I got on Discord and it was in NFTs. And you're in chat and it's like somebody's in the Philippines, it's 2 in the morning, and I'm, it's 1 in the afternoon, and somebody's there from London, and somebody's there from, Croatia or whatever it might be, and it was just like, wow, this whole planet is doing this right now.
Right.
And it was really kind of an eye-opening thing. But whereas you kind of had a little bit of exposure to that early on, do you think that maybe equipped you a little bit more because you were able to already experience some of those cultures and whatnot?
sure. Yeah, I would say so. I guess there might be two factors that I can think of. One, maybe being somewhat relatable to other people from different cultures, and then
Yep,
there's knowing a few different languages.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah, the languages part. I mean, we touched on that before the stream a little bit, but if you happen to there was a moment in time, and still now, but more so before, when people would be in the VCs very often of different projects, not just NFTs, but also crypto related, especially last year with the play to earn hype.
Hmm.
I mean, you guys might have participated in or heard about. You would meet people from different countries, and you just get different perspectives and different kinds of information from one group of people that is totally different from another, and like being able to jump into a chat that speaks Spanish, you hear what they have to say, and it's totally different than what somebody who's speaking Portuguese or English is talking about or focusing on. So yeah, that part was useful. And the cultural part, I mean, if you're able to make friends very quickly, then that's also going to benefit you in the space.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. And kind
For
of to follow
sure.
up on that, I'm actually very curious because you've lived in many different places, experienced different cultures. Where's your favorite place you've lived?
Oh, favorite
And you have to
place.
pick one. You can't say multiple.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll pick Panama. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
just
Panama and why?
I like the climate. It has everything you need in terms of like if you want to go to the beach, there are beaches and some island beaches nearby, depending on where you live, of course. Great people. I just like the vibes, I guess you could say. Yeah.
That's
I'd have to
perfect.
think. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'd have to think about it a little more to find a more nuanced answer. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
See,
No, that's great.
listen. Do not feel pressure to give like some beautiful response, essay, extremely eloquent. Don't worry about that, man. Just speak your mind. Again, we're here for a while and we're just interested in your thoughts. And if you have to pause or say, hey, I'm going to come back to this later, totally cool, dude. No stress at all.
And let me ask this because you know 4.5 languages.
Mhm.
One of the things I think is cool is we've had we've had a lot of guests on this show, right? And we've had guests that were predominantly let's just say like Eastern, predominantly Western, some
Mhm.
specifically like Holy Shoot, for example. They were really most of their project was around China, right? And that
Hmm.
was where a lot of their community was built. Do you see the ability to communicate with in so many different languages as can you act as like does that open up more communities for you? I mean, obviously it does, but can you yourself as the founder slash dev manage that, or does that at least get you into some communities where you can maybe have some, whether it be moderators or people involved on the team, where that opens up a larger audience for you? I mean, I think that that's kind of like a smart play to be able to reach more people. Is that something you think about or you're utilizing?
It is something we think about, and it has been something we've used. So, for instance, there was not, I don't know, not too long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, a great Chinese community that we were able to have a conversation with. Not a very deep conversation because my Chinese is still at 0.5,
Yeah.
but
Right?
but like that was great, and like we've seen that specific community like grow in the NFT space. So like
Sure.
getting more involved there with the players over there, the groups, has been one part. Of course, like we're still in the stages before the mint, so to see what results we'll get from some of our efforts talking to different groups is yet to be seen, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
the conversations have started, and there are some also, I guess you could say, double-edged sword. You can talk to different communities and get them involved, but if the communities maybe can't talk to each other, is that does that become a problem? Is another question. Like for instance,
Interesting.
some projects like having, let's say, different language channels in their server because they want to make sure that everybody can participate. And then there are other projects that like the opposite. No, they only want one specific language so that they know everybody is on the same page. So it's
Yeah.
like this almost
Yeah.
philosophical question, and you
Yeah.
have to choose one.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. So we had, have you heard of the project Operation Sin?
Yes.
So we had Helen on, and he took the standpoint. He's from America, and he speaks English, and he doesn't have any language channels, and he's like, but I welcome anyone, right? And if they can't speak, English really well, they can come and learn in my server, and I'd be happy to help them do that. I never heard somebody put it that way before, which I thought was interesting because you just by default think, oh, I'll just have to have a channel for every nation around the country because that's what I should do. And he was like pretty firm on that. And he says it actually was a good thing in his mind because it actually brought a lot of people to the VCs, and people would sit and listen for months on end. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, someone that still is speaking like some pretty,
Broken
hardcore
English.
broken English would speak up and say something really interesting. And he said it was just fascinating to watch it unfold.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Yeah,
Sure, yeah,
This is
please do.
it's amazing how the little small details make such a big difference. So you guys have probably joined a bunch of servers where you see there's like a verification bot, right?
Yeah.
You have to verify with a little CAPTCHA. Those verification bots are great to prevent bots, but at the same time, there's this crazy percentage that I saw, and I think it's true, that somewhere between 20 to 50% of the people that are joining do not verify, that are humans, not bots, but humans. So if that is in fact true, and that's and I've seen some data to back that up, like you can look through the people that joined the welcome chat but did not verify in a period of 1 day and see how many appear to be human or not based off whatever metric you want to use. If that is the case, then that is somewhat of a lost opportunity based off of a small detail. A small detail now just costs you 20 to 50% of the potential people that could have participated in your project. So these little things about what kind of voice channels should you have, what kind of text channels, what order.
Sure.
It's crazy. It can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And the reason I asked the question about the languages is because even if it's not within your server, just the ability to collaborate, right? Partner, things like that. You have options that Helen doesn't have, right? Just simply because like you can reach out, and even if you said it's your point 0.5 Chinese, the fact is you can have a conversation with people that Mike and I can't have a conversation with, and that opens up doors for you. And I just didn't know if that was something I mean, well, you did. You said you just had a meeting with and you just had a discussion with the project in Chinese, and so that's pretty cool. That's
So
really cool.
you said something very interesting there, though. So these 40, let's just go down the road that, okay, it does come out that there's just this verification bottleneck is really actually holding almost 40, could be 50% of people from joining a Discord. Have you thought about how you want to solve that on your end? Are your assumptions, because when I hear that, my assumptions are it's the same concept in marketing. You want to deliver a message and get the consumer to the purchase point in as little clicks as possible. So if you're having to join a Discord server and now you're putting this bar up due to, what is perceived as a pretty, valid reason, which is security, right? You are deterring people still that might be interested in it, but just don't want to. People are lazy, man, and they don't want to do these couple extra steps. How are you interpreting that data that you just mentioned? Because that's how I interpret it, is there's actually a big portion of people we're missing out on just due to we're making it harder than it should be to join a Discord.
Yeah. So everybody has ideas. I can tell you what ideas we've had and some that we've used. That doesn't mean that it's the right ones, but it's what we have. So, for instance, we haven't had some issues with bots as maybe some other servers have with a mass influx. We do have a verification system, but we have not. So we have a little text channel on top where people can verify, but we've not enforced that verification prevents them from doing anything else on the server. We will only start enforcing it once we start seeing issues with bots joining, doing things that we don't want them to be doing. So that's our little step that we've taken. Whether or not that's played out, that's all. That we'll see what the future dictates for us. That's one little detail. Another little thing that we're, I guess, playing around with is, and this maybe goes to what you were talking about, Operation Sin, them not wanting specific text channels. It's almost like a attention economy. It's like real estate. You have how many text channels are you going to have? How much will people scroll through down? Do people like to go into voice channels? Do they have visibility of the voice channel right when they join and they see somebody in? Is it more likely they're going to join? I'll tell you guys a little quirky thing that we did that actually worked out in the beginning. When people first started joining, we made our primary invite link to the Discord a voice channel invite link, not a text channel one. So, and we were sneaky. We decided, hey, let's jump in the voice channel, and then when people join, we're just gonna say hi. And they're like, oh, what am I doing here? You know, they got a little surprised to join the VC,
I
but we
love
ended up
this.
yeah, we ended up having wholesome conversations with people we ended up that might have just disappeared a moment after, you know, but it stuck in their heads a little bit that we took that extra step. So little things like that, we're
Yeah.
brainstorming every day, and we're probably going to go into more detail on some of the other things. But yeah, I hope that kind of
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
goes into
just that
context.
little thing right there, that's fantastic. And I mean, I guarantee there's you're gonna have stories of people who came in and had a conversation, like you said, even if it's just a couple sentences. That's way more connection than you do by just joining and then you just sit there and lurk. I mean,
Right.
that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Hmm.
what, to your point of not making verification required to interact in the Discord server, I'm assuming you've looked at data and insights from that, and you feel like, you know, that decision has helped you out by getting more people into the server than you would have if you did the typical Discord thing that everyone else is doing.
For sure. Now it's hard to measure, like if you want to do an accurate measurement, you want to like a control and, you know, the experiment. Like if we're talking about
Right,
like doing a little
right.
science, we'd have to have two identical servers
Right.
under the same kind of wave of people joining. So some of this does go down to speculation, but some does go down to actually, you know, talking to other owners of servers, looking at, okay, can we see
Yeah.
your welcome chat, even though that the verification system, you know, they usually have either a private text channel that shows the logs of people joined, or it's public, and then you can just scroll through there and look at the last 100 people if they're verified, and if you think they're
Right.
humans
Yeah.
or bots based
Right.
off of things. So that's the data you can look at and get to that 20 to 50%. And I was having a deeper conversation with a few people about this maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, that's awesome, man.
that's yeah.
And
No, it's a
and
fantastic
just
point.
so, and this is how we're not letting you off the hook on episode 1. See, here's what you didn't know is Maddie and I start asking questions, just opens up pathway after pathway. So this is a really fascinating conversation to me because we just really uncovered how interested you are in doing things differently, because but I mean, we've had some of the top projects on this show and no one's talked to us about the nuances of what's the process when somebody comes into the Discord. It's just by default, people verify, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're thinking about things differently already is really interesting to me. So that brings me to, let's now rewind, you know, your time period as a kid. You're moving around, your dad's a business person, you're learning to be curious. Obviously, the moving around probably made you uncomfortable multiple times, and you had to deal with that adversity. Where do you think your interest in experimentation, engineering, the sciences, coding, all of that came from? Is that something that was inherently part of you, or is that something that, you know, that passion grew over time as you grew older? I'd love to hear about that.
It's hard for me to pinpoint why my interests are exactly what they are, but I can tell you that it's definitely a consequence of maybe um, what my parents did at an early age. Like my mom would, like, while I was, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, eating food at the table, she'd catch little bugs and put them in a jar on the table, so, you know, I can see the little bugs doing their thing and, you know, ask questions. Yeah, and when it comes to my father, just conversations, you know, he'd take me to his business meetings sometimes just so I can sit down and listen, things like that. So I guess you could say it was a progressive thing and not a specific instance. I don't know exactly at which point anything of that happened, but it was probably little by little over time.
Well, you just said two pretty amazing things, which is my mom wasn't catching bugs and letting me watch them in a jar when I was little. And then two, my dad was a mailman, so he wasn't taking me to his business and sitting in on meetings either. Talk to us a little bit more about those business meetings. So you would just shadow your dad at a young age, and you would Do you have any, vivid memories of that time or any other thing? Like you just depicted a pretty vivid memory of like watching bugs with your mom in a jar. Are there any other instances like that that really stand out to you as you're learning, growing, and kind of learning to experiment throughout your childhood?
Sure. I mean, are you asking specifically, like maybe some of the stories that I've
Yeah,
heard or
stories
seen?
are great. We love stories.
Yeah. There
Stories
was
that
this.
impacted you though,
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
remember for a reason because it was like, ooh, you learned something interesting when you were in
Mm-hmm.
a business meeting or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
The kind of but to this
Uh,
theme of like helping you grow and mold and be curious,
y-
because you obviously have become that just by that Discord conversation.
yeah. There's both like specific things, and then there's like little details that aren't a specific thing, but you notice over time.
Let's
So if
talk
I
about all
mention.
of them.
Sure. So if we mention like one off the top of my head, I don't know if it's the most interesting one. I'll probably have other ones later, but I remember my dad was having a business meeting with an Italian man over a certain property, and the Italian man who gave one of his stories where he had closed a deal with someone else, but after that deal was closed, he ended up having a dinner with the guy. They ended up having a few drinks, and over the course of that dinner, the man changed his mind as to having that deal closed in the first place. So it's interesting how, depending on the way the conversation goes,
Mm,
um, things can change for the smallest of details. So you kind of have to be very thorough with what you do. You have to think of what is the consequence of you doing this, and then take into account it. The little details, the little details matter is what I got from that. Um, and similarly, just yeah, whenever I would be in some of those meetings, the way that my father would talk to them, the way that you could see how people would have their own personal interests in mind, but try to kind of mask it with, trying to paint it in a different light so that the other person
Sure.
can be on your side. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. I like that. Any other things that stick out that were so and let me ask you this. So when you learned that, what did you take and apply that? How did you apply that in your life moving forward?
Uh, so whenever like I'm making a conversation with someone when it comes to business, I have to keep some of these details in mind because in a way, this has some conflict with, I guess, my engineering like background or
Yeah.
math because I like the numbers and I like, okay, well, what is factual, what is true, what you can do without having all this fluff around it, right?
Yep.
But then I understand that all that factual and true stuff exists in between a bunch of fluff that people want to impose on you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I guess you could say, help me navigate some of my own personal decisions. And also when it comes to AFU, once I don't know if we start talking about that now or later, there's situations where people would encourage you to do collaborations when you shouldn't do them, or they try to paint certain pictures of what you should do, but it doesn't mean you should. So that plays into that as well. You have to be somewhat careful with the decisions you make in the space. Does
right.
that make sense?
Yeah. No,
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
it does.
These are all great insights, man.
Yeah, and it's fantastic because at the end of the day, I love how you said that, right? Here's the thing. Fluff is easily manipulated, right? Truth is truth. The bottom line is there are scientific facts and they are what they are. And I get you, man. Again, engineering background myself. We seek out that truth and we want to use it. The problem though is that like Mike's side of the fence, marketing, branding, truth is irrelevant. Truth is
Mm.
whatever I
It's all
spin
about
and tell
spin,
you it is,
baby.
right? And so you got to remember that like the dollars follow spin, not truth. And it's a really interesting concept because the best spin is when you convince people what they're hearing is truth. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, there's a subtlety there that has to be played out. But I get you, man. And you here it doesn't mean that the data points are wrong. Remember, there's two types of data because you were talking about how to do this test and yeah we'd have to have like a kind of like this double blind study kind of deal.
Mm.
But you're talking about scientific evidence and empirical evidence, right? But remember, historically speaking, the other type of evidence historical evidence is when we can't empirically prove it, all we can do is say, okay, where are the most data points? And so
Mm,
if 1,000 people say that something happened in history and we can look at documents and show that, it's probably a pretty good chance that it happened, right? And even though we know there's going to be opinions in there, there's going to be an overwhelming kind of a median where like everybody kind of agreed on this. So we believe that there's this guy named Caesar, right? We can't prove it, but we got a pretty good idea there was a dude named Caesar. Do you see what I'm saying? And so,
yeah.
when you look at those data points, some of the stuff we're going to be doing here is going to be based on that. And I'll tell you, Mike said it here before. One of the best spots for that, Discord is a perfect proving ground for getting a whole lot of data points
Yeah.
on there. And then just basically saying, okay, let's draw what line fits this curve the best, right? What's the best equation to use? And so I think that's where we're going to have to find ourselves because the spin will always be there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. Everything on the same page. What line fits best the points that you have that
Yep.
can make that curve?
Yep.
Right.
I think
Love
we're
it.
going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to get
And,
anything empirical moving in this space.
and
I think we're beyond that. As you know, with most people, it's tough to use truth as a convincing point.
yeah, for sure. And then the next question is, okay, there's going to be new data points every month for
Mhm.
people refer to as the meta, what's
Yep.
happening now, what's catching people's interest. Now you
Yep.
almost have to predict the points and then choose a graph that's going to go around that prediction.
You got
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
You got it.
Yep. And then, so to even layer on that, which I think is interesting though, because what I love about you talked about your dad's story is part of what I interpreted from that too is, there was that truth that came out, but also it is learning how to mold your narrative to someone to be likable in the sense that you're relatable, right? And that
Mm,
is
mm.
so critically important in any space. One of the best life lessons I ever learned was from my old CMO, which stands for Chief Marketing Officer in the States. And so he ran the marketing department for a company, and our budget was over $2 billion. And when you spend that much money, you want to talk about big data. That is the epitome of big data, right? They throw this word big data around all the time. Well, we had big data, stacks and stacks of data, and you can get so lost in thinking that you're making the right decision because the data tells you, but the real special sauce, the real bread and butter is being able to take the data to make a decision in one way, but also using your gut and your instinct and your life experiences to validate that you think that's right, or even go in a different direction than the data is saying because you're using your common sense. So it's cool to hear that you're combining both of those life lessons and you're already tinkering around with that in that Discord example, and that's just exciting to hear. What do you think about that comment that I just said?
I think it's beautiful, and like you mentioned, the tickering at the end, it goes into a concept that you guys maybe have heard of. Like, I mean, Silicon Valleys are used at like fail fast. Have you
Yeah.
guys heard of that phrase
Mm-hmm.
before?
So I
Yeah.
lived in the Bay Area.
Beautiful. I think I live by that statement. And then the question, at least for us, is how to structure things in a way that allows for you to fail fast. I think that's something that I think about a lot. So, the market's always changing. You have to adapt to it. How can you make a situation where you're able to take little risks, see if they work? If they don't work, adapt. How do you make that structure? So that's something that we're also working on it. When we get to the model that AaaFU is using to try to be sustainable, to try to sustainably grow in a bear market, you'll see some of those elements in there as well.
Yeah, no, I love
See,
it. This is the
this is
lean.
good.
This is the lean startup methodology, baby.
I like it. This
Yeah.
is why you like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? You get good by
It's
failing.
best.
That's the thing. It's in a controlled environment, but fail often, fail fast. Let me ask you this. Why? So first of all, you did all the coding stuff. You started as a developer before. You were playing around programming. you ended up as a developer after. Where did I know you said civil engineering because of like, hey, you figuring out how things work, things like that, but like why civil engineering? Why didn't you just study code? Why didn't you study programming or computer science?
So, well, for one, as I'm a bit of a math geek. I always wanted to find the proofs of why specific things work that the way that they work. I wasn't
Uh-huh.
happy just, oh, this is the derivative that finds the rate of change. Okay, why does it find the rate of change? I made my own little proofs with Pascal's triangle and understand why. And why is the opposite of the derivative finding the area under the curve? So all these
Yeah.
little things, it was an interest of mine. Computer science, I love it, but in a way, it's one of the few professions you can learn by yourself without really needing, a university to teach you what to do. I mean, all the resources are there,
Yeah.
and it
Yep.
wasn't necessarily um, filling the hole of the things that I was fully interested in. We mentioned real estate early on, like with my father and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Civil engineering played really well into that. If I did end up choosing that life decision, I would study something I like, and then be able to use it in an area that I already have some familiarity with. So I didn't go in that direction, but that brings some context as to my decisions.
Got it. And then why civil engineering in Brazil? Why'd you want to move away to do it and not study closer or somewhere different, or why Brazil?
So well, the thing is, like, we've my parents, myself, were always it's been a close family, and they like traveling. They're
Yeah.
nomads in some way, so they really liked Brazil, and they had visited before, and they wanted to live over there as well. And I could have chose to stay at that time and finish my career, my not my
Degree.
degree, my bachelor's in civil engineering in Panama.
Uh-huh.
However, there was also some amazing, like, civil engineering, even better universities in Brazil. Plus, I like traveling as well, so it seemed like a great experience. Plus, I'd learn a new language. It checked a lot of boxes, so that was it.
Fair enough.
Dude, I
I
love the
like it.
explanation. And Maddie, it's interesting. You were going the same way I was going, and Ufa, we'll get kind of to the more Web3 crypto stuff here soon. Kind of really the last thing I wanted to like kind of touch on your upbringing in it and see what we did there. You told us a story about Discord and you just gave us all of this beautiful information, man. So we really appreciate you sharing all those stories. And that's kind of what we were looking for in the Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3. And you've done an awesome job since then. Uh, I'm really interested to see, so you spend time doing the civil engineering, and then you're like, you ended up really never practicing it because you got back into the
Mm.
software programming and this drive for entrepreneurship. Um, was there an aha moment there, or did the university schooling kind of just turn you off? Talk to us about that experience and why you just decided to completely shift into Web3 or not wanting to work for a company or utilize your degree.
Yeah. So, what was it? Was it my before the beginning of my last year of civil engineering? I already at that point had a good idea that civil engineering wasn't the thing that I would like to do. Just because I knew the lifestyle better, I put more of my time into thinking, okay, what does one do? They either make the designs or they're the one inspecting. And is that how I want to live my life? Not really. It wasn't my interest, even though it might be other people's interests. And at that point, I could have made the transition of getting a computer science degree, and I wouldn't have to do the whole thing because a lot of the subjects, I had already done. But I
Yeah.
decided, okay, let me finish it and continue down the road of the thing that I really liked and enjoyed. I've been doing my whole life. So that's why the direction of coding. Civil engineering, just the lifestyle didn't necessarily interest me. And also, there's a lot more options in coding. You're allowed to be more flexible. So, for instance, when I was
Yeah.
about to do my thesis, I would for civil engineering, I wanted to do something interesting about floating houses, right? Like you make the little like you make these floatable foundations. That I found that really interesting. I didn't know much about how they work, but then when I talked to my professor, he said, "Well, that's going to be a little bit difficult. We don't have a specialist here in the university on that to actually grade you on, and like I just see restrictions. I don't want to have these restrictions. Coding that has
Uh,
much less, you're able to be creative, and not to mention Web3 even more. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's it.
A beautiful explanation
So
there too.
I do want to. I just want to flip this a little bit here for you, Ufa. Uh, I would say that was some of the best training you can get because here's the reality. Life has restrictions, right? And I get what you're saying about code, but when you move over to entrepreneurship, I think the ability to still solve problems with a certain set of conditions
True.
is so critical in an entrepreneurial space. Because I'm excited. I think that engineers make very good entrepreneurs for this reason. Engineering as itself, you're right, man. There's a certain set of fundamentals, and quite frankly, between you, me, and Mike, um, the job of engineering, I'd rather bang my head against a corner, right? That being said, the concept of engineering, solving problems in a unique way and figuring out creative ways to solve those problems with those conditions, right? So in a simple example with aerospace engineering, you know, okay, you can build it, but does it fly? Because if you can't overcome gravity, we got a problem, right? It doesn't really matter if it holds or if it can go that fast. If it can't fly, it's useless. And so you have these parameters, and I think that entrepreneurship kind of brings that to the table. And I would say the best entrepreneurs ultimately, and Mikey says it's all about, you find a problem and you solve it. If you can solve a problem and monetize it, monetize the solution, I should say, rather, you're going to be wealthy.
Yeah.
And so you've been trained to do that. And I agree with you. I agree with your move. I mean, obviously, personally, because I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Learn it, but then move into an area where you can monetize something differently and be able to use your strengths. And so I think overall, it's a good thing that you had that ability. I mean, it sounds like you already had it, but still, it's a good thing to have under your belt.
Yeah, and I can't remember who told me this, but a lot of the innovation that happens in any space is when you take somebody who's not in that space, comes from a different field, and transitions over.
Yeah,
So they don't have that pigeonhole view; they have this
you
whole different
got it.
perspective. So yeah, I
Fresh,
agree.
divergent thinking. That's how. Yep. Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree 100% for sure.
Dude,
That's
love it.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that back and forth, and I think it's very interesting. Um, let's move on to and so now we've really hit like Star Wars episode 1.5. How does that feel for
Yeah,
you? Feeling good?
It feels great. I love it.
I love it.
Now
Can't wait to see the other episodes.
Yeah, man.
now you have a better understanding of what we're going for. So let's do this. Let's because I'm actually really, a lot of times we talk about projects here, and a lot of it's based off the artwork or
Mm.
people's business backgrounds. But again, you have an interesting perspective, and I think you've approached your project in a very interesting experimental way as well. So I'm really excited to get to that conversation. But before that,
Mm.
I want to go to your Web3 journey. So take us through. All right, we know about your background. We understand why you think the way you think. Um, Now you've said, screw it, Web3 is for me, entrepreneur, let's do this. Take us through that from that decision up to okay, I think I want to start my own project. So this kind of Web3 journey. Love to
And
hear it.
and go actually all the way back because before even that, you've been crypto investing for 5 to 6 years. You were saying.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a lot more than most people in the space, right? And
Yeah.
so what I'd be curious is at least start back to that. Like, how did you even get into crypto at all? Right? Because then you got into crypto and then it was 3+ years ago you started the Solidity work and learning that. So something
Mm.
brought you into Web3 and like, hey, I want to start coding for this. Take us through the journey all the way starting and how did you even get into crypto and move us in from there?
Oh, okay. This is gonna go into a little bit of a different hole, but sure, why
Okay.
not?
I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I have some other things like interests in life, and including what's happening currently in biology and health. So I
Okay.
have there's I would often scope what's happening with regenerative medicine online and be part of some of these communities. There, there's a lot of innovation happening there right now,
Hmm.
and some of the people over there, in particular, a friend of mine, she told me about crypto, and I'm not sure if she was the first one, but she was definitely one of the people that brought me to look back into it. And then at one point, like looked into it deeper, decided like I love the idea. Bitcoin. I remember when Mount Gox happened. I wasn't investing at that point, but it was crazy how a Magic the Gathering exchange ends up
Yeah.
now being transacting all this money, and then out of nowhere they get scammed. And I guess one of the interesting parts is that because everything's happening in Web3 on the blockchain and there's less accountability, you have to be much more careful, which sucks. Nobody wants to have this risk, but also the innovation is so quick. You don't have as many restrictions to start something. If you want to start it, you start it. So it has this double-edged sword. I remember there were some I got some Ethereum. I can't remember exactly what year it was. And there was looking into the meme coins. There's this early on meme coin called Garlic Coin. I don't know if you guys heard about it.
No, I didn't. Have not
Uh,
No.
heard of the old
Garlic
garlic
Coin.
No.
coin. I like
Yeah,
garlic though.
it had some hype. It had some large hype, and I even started mining it a little bit, and all that. But yeah, just going through the rounds like that, investing here and there, and yeah, it went well. Like I was making money, and eventually my friend Danny, who was already into Solidity and Web3, pushed me and says, "Hey, yeah, you should. This is the future, and so why not prepare for the future?" So interesting thing. So last year, you guys know about the play to earn and everything was happening back then, because anybody who was from before, I benefited a little bit because I was already in the space in a while, and I usually during the bear markets, and it was a bear market in the early stages of last year. Whoever stayed there and saw what was happening would ended up also benefiting the most from the hype that was happening with NFTs and Play to Earn. In the case of Play to Earn, some of the things that I did, I made some sniper bots, for instance,
Hmm.
where
Mhm.
on Pancake Swap, you had a lot of these projects launching over there, and if you were one of the early people to buy the token, you almost had a guarantee that you would, make money from it. So yeah, that was one of the things. Like for instance, last year I managed to invest early in AXS from Axie Infinity, and I looked into all the
Ooh.
tokenomics of all the different projects that were happening. Well, not super. Okay, $6.50 was my entry, and I exited at around
Okay.
$50
I mean,
for
that's still
AXS.
pretty darn good if you're spending some money on it.
For sure, for sure. And I was also participating in some of these other projects, and by being able to make my own bots to be able to make purchases quicker for me, that also benefited me when it came to investing in them. So yeah, that's now everybody has a bot when they have to purchase something, whatnot. It's almost become the norm. But yeah, that's a little bit of context. I don't know. Were there some other questions in relation to that, or?
Well, yeah, we just kind of wanted to get again the process of specifically getting into crypto,
Mhm.
getting into Web3, and bring you right up to what Mike was asking is like then getting to a point where you're in the space and you're like, you know what, I want to start a project and put some things together. That I have some ideas. So I think you talked about the early crypto part.
Mhm.
Maybe keep going from there.
Sure, sure. So then already with my Danny introducing me to like developing, I started developing. I started making my own little tools that I could use
Hmm.
specifically for investment at the time because, well, that's what I was already doing. So that
Yeah.
was to my benefit. And also, you always have this idea, right? Like, okay, you see a project popping off, you could do something potentially similar or different. It's always been, at least in the back of my mind, and in the back of some of my friends' minds. When last year happened, and last year I think was a big time for me, a lot of these projects, the most important part was the tokenomics, right? And I would spend a lot of time reading the white papers of all these projects. do they have sustainable models or not? But even if they didn't necessarily have sustainable models, then they still popped off in the beginning, but eventually died out. Axie Infinity's
Right.
SLP is a great example of that. So I would spend a lot of time, especially last year, reading through the papers, talking to the communities, using the bots that I made in order to make purchases or sell when I needed to sell. And I think a lot of this brings things a little bit closer to this year, because I'm also coming a little bit from that perspective. How do you create a model that is not this inflationary model that is not sustainable, that it attracts initial attention but then dies off?
Yeah.
And there's different ideas on how you can do that, but it also depends on where the market is at the moment. So that's, I guess, where you could say some of the conversations came as to how can we organize AaaFU to be able to do that, especially when it's difficult. Because if you can do it when it's difficult, and maybe you get a little bit, when the bull market comes, then you're more prepared than anybody else.
Right.
So that's
right.
I guess, yeah, brings it to this point.
But you said something really interesting again there, and that was you basically spent, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but you spent a majority of last year just kind of like going in and out of these discords, really interested, reading lots of white papers, and really trying to understand the system and systems that people were building, and not necessarily like, there's a lot of money to be made, I'm just going to make a project and see what happens. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So if Axie Infinity might be the easiest one to break down, because
Yeah, let's break it down together, man. I know we all know Axie Infinity, but this will make great content for your community as well as the good old YouTube. So let's break down Axie Infinity from AaaFU's mind.
Sure. So Axie Infinity, you start hearing some people talking about it. You don't know what it is, and then it's like, okay, let's find out what it is. You see some videos about professionally made videos by news stations that over there in Indonesia, in Malaysia, people are buying houses with the profits. Like, what's this? I joined their Discord, and I just see like it's one of the biggest Discords at the time. I think it had maybe 400,000, 500,000 people, which now there's even bigger Discords, but at the time it might have even been the biggest.
Yeah.
And you just see people flocking in out of nowhere. Why is this interest happening? So then, okay, go into the thing is, you can find sources that explain to you exactly what everything does, but at the same time, for me, it was also important to maybe play the game, because then you get a little bit of a more intuitive, like, okay, how everything works. It all gels together. So first thing I did was I bought 3 Axies for myself, and I started playing the game, and I started looking into all the like details, all the resources. I started understanding the mechanics. Okay, now you have this AXS token, which is the governance token, which is a little bit hard to get, whereas the SLP is an inflationary token that's being given over time. The amount of people that are joining is just crazy, and it's happening at a faster rate than this SLP is being minted. So it's making sense why the prices are going up so high, but it's not a sustainable model, because there's a graph on a website that showed the amount of SLP that's being burned per day and the amount that's being minted. And it's always increasing, like more is being minted than being burned. So, okay, now you find yourself in a situation where it looks like if the growth continues being higher than the rate of extra SLP being minted, the price will go up. But how long can that last? So I did end up making a good investment at $6.50-ish. I think that was the price. And I was, okay, there is always the option that they're going to pivot, that they're going to change to some other kind of model once they reach their peak. That would be great. And I don't know if I held for like a month and a half or 2 or something along those lines. I could be wrong there. But this issue, other people started noticing it when the team was questioned. They said that they would pivot to something else, but you never got a perfect answer. So at that point, I was already making the decision that I was following the news. It was time for me to leave, because I didn't necessarily see a good answer to the concerns that I had. And that ended up being right. And this also ended up being the same case for a lot of other play to earn projects, unfortunately. So now the question becomes, how do you make a sustainable model? These models that were not sustainable, they had the benefit that they could give a lot of things to people free, which gets a lot of interest to people.
Right.
But that same giving away of free ended up being what shoots them in the foot.
Yeah.
So if you try to make something more sustainable, it's harder to get that initial interest because you're not giving away free stuff. You don't have the inflationary to give away. So yeah, there are a few ones that are doing something that seems more sustainable, like Blanco's Block Party, I think is the name of the project. They're just
Yeah.
doing it in another model. They didn't get the hype that some of these inflationary tokens did, but they also didn't get that big fall. And yeah, that's the example of
And the Wolf
Axie.
Game has resurrected themselves as well, right?
Which one?
Wolf Game.
I don't know that one actually.
You don't know Wolf Game? What?
Wolf
Yeah, that's
Game.
one of the super hype projects as well. So I think they started with the same concept. And I think it was heading in the wrong direction, but they have since pivoted, and it's become a pretty solid project and is still valued pretty high because they figured out their tokenomics. But at first, I think it was not going in the right direction. But now, listen, honestly, understand that there's thousands of projects out there, so I get it. Love the thorough explanation. I think that does kind of take us to, because we've had many projects on here. If you're into tokens and creating real deflationary economies, you have to check out a project called Citadel. I'll send you the links to both of the streams because these guys are insanely sharp. We're at the top, are still at the top of the gaming industry, and have created an amazing game with beautiful artwork. And I think, with your appreciation of tokenomics and doing it the right way, I think you'll appreciate what they're doing. So take us now to you're researching, you're getting very interested in how these tokens are working, how the projects are working. At what point are you like, okay, now it's time to pull the trigger to start a project? I'm assuming that's sometime at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. What was it in your mind that you said, okay, I'm ready at this point?
What made, I guess, clicked, I guess it wasn't necessarily a specific moment, but it gradually leading to the point that I would love to create something that would be the lifestyle of, okay, let's say you create a project and a project that helps the space move forward and you're a participant in that and there's other people participating in that. I mean, that's a great life, right? Especially if you can be one of the seats of the table that helps make a decision. Like, let's say Bored Ape right now, they can call Vitalik Buterin if they wanted, right? They'd be able to say, hey, we'd like to do something that might be able to help the space.
Right.
They would have a great lifestyle for themselves. It's an exciting life, and you're able to make a big change in the world, because at least it's my opinion that Web3 is going to be an even bigger part of the world in the next few years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it had that idea for, it's not a new idea. A lot of people want to create something, but then the question is, okay, are you able to fit that role? Are you able to make something that makes sense and get that seat on the table? And this year was the year that a friend of mine, Didi, and myself, we were having conversations for a while, and we started sculpting together, like, okay, what would we like to make? What should the starting point be? Should the starting point be an NFT project, or should it be something else entirely? Should it be a DAO? What's the benefits of each of these? How can we, together with whatever community we end up putting together, get a seat on that table to be able to make decisions in the future 3 years from now that will help mold the space.
Right.
That's kind of the thing.
And so this was one of the things that you said to me that I was like, this is very interesting. And I think this could be an interesting conversation, is because instead, most projects think, I'm going to start an NFT project. Hopefully I can make some money to make this prolonged. You're already starting your journey as in, I want to be a blue chip because I want to help mold the space and do it the right way. And I think that's interesting to me. So take us through, we're eventually going to ask you to do kind of a 2 to 3 minute elevator pitch of the project, but I actually want to
Mm.
go through your ideation journey with you. And did you say your co-founder is a female, right? Dee Dee?
Didi, she's
Yeah.
the other half of the team. Yeah, the
So
two of us are pushing
take
it
us
together.
through, ideation, brainstorming with Dee Dee over the last however many months it had been. Um, and before you do that,
What?
Maddie has something to say.
Yeah, sorry. Before we get there, I do have just a weird 90-degree turn question I
Yes.
have to
Mm,
know.
Yes.
mm.
Mikey and I have heard this since the beginning of the space, and you mentioned it when you talked about a sniper bot. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Several people have brought these things to attention. Here's just what I want to know
yeah.
for everybody that's going to be listening to this, because we will clip this. I just want to know, is this for real? Because I kept hearing about sniper bots as like this way to kind of like hack the planet. We can get in there and beat everybody. And I knew that there were a couple people that had pulled it off and it worked. But I also heard about some people that like if the code wasn't right, they blew all their money because of gas fees and things like this. So as a dev, can you give us the
Mm.
lowdown? Is this for real? Is this like the leprechaun at the end of the rainbow type thing that we were all chasing and everybody talked about but no one actually did?
Good
I need
question.
to know.
Okay, so to paint the picture, you know, Pancake Swap, Sushi Swap, all these different
Yeah.
swaps, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So whenever somebody is making a new token and making it work on something like Pancake Swap, a new contract is going to be generated. And
Okay.
that generation of that contract, you can look for that event to spawn, right? So if
Okay.
so a bot's going to do that faster than a human will be able to do it. So yes, you are able to get the signal faster that the specific contract has been made for PancakeSwap in relation to a specific token. So let's say somebody makes an ERC20 token, right? He
Yep.
hasn't yet put it. Okay, so one context. Uh, Binance is ERC20 compatible. So basically, Ethereum was kind of like adapted to work with Binance, and the same has happened with a few other blockchains. That's so when a new ERC20 token is made, um, it's not directly working with PancakeSwap, but the person who owns that token has to go and put liquidity inside PancakeSwap for that new contract to be generated. You make a bot
Mm,
to notice when that contract was generated for that specific token. So you need the address of that token to know
okay.
what you're looking for. Whoever had a bot that could see that and then instantly buy could benefit, but you also have to be careful because there's other people who have sniper bots, right? So in a way,
Okay.
one way that some people benefit from this was, let's say you find a hype project, right? That hype project, it's going to release its token, and you know that there's going to be a certain amount of bots that are buying first because they're the fastest, and then there's going to be a certain amount of humans. So if you had a sniper bot that worked properly, maybe you won't be the first bot, but you'll be amongst the bots, and then there's going to be a bunch of humans buying after. So you had a much higher chance in making a profit than a human that would be buying after the fact. Now, there are sniper bots that you buy online that steal your money. So if you're a
Yeah.
developer and you know what you're doing, you can make it and you can have the security of knowing what's happening. But
Yeah.
if you're not a developer, then you have to be a little bit
So
careful. Uh-huh. Yeah.
so it's real. So what you're saying is so compounding all of that because what you just said made me believe that it was possible, but you really had to know what you were doing. So this was something that was there. People were making pretty good money on this then, right?
Yeah, and sniper bots exist now, right? Like you can still use that for. It's
Yeah.
not like it was in the early days when there was less
Sure.
people using sniper bots and the projects were earning much more. But yeah, they exist and they have existed.
Son of a beat. Okay. It's a thing. It is a thing. Okay. I appreciate that. I needed to know because that scratch has been there for a while, man. And I mean,
And you got the answer.
it's been there.
And this is an example of not the rich get richer, but the smart get richer. Because they figured
Yes.
out how to hack the system. Although,
Yeah,
so
no, that's
I'm
awesome.
actually in a great a Discord that's a rarity sniper. Really cool guys. It's called Fresh Drops. and they have really gone down the rabbit hole on, how to get the quickest reveal, understand rarity, milliseconds
Oh
before
my God.
everybody else.
Yeah.
And they've actually done pretty well on a lot of projects. So it's fascinating when you start using tools and find a group of people that you can trust that are known, not out there to steal your money. Really cool group of dudes.
I want to can I add some context to this because
Yeah.
what you're talking about is like the metadata maybe leaking or
Yes.
not even leaking, but you getting it earlier than other people, right?
Yes.
So, are you Matthew? Are you also familiar with this, or more or less, or not sure? Just to know, I can go like from the beginning to explain what's
I have a
happening.
general
Let's
idea.
let's give. I understand what's going on, but our community might not, or anybody that watches this video. Let's give them a little breakdown on that.
So when someone makes an ERC 721 contract, right, they're making the contract that proves who has ownership of what token. But the pictures, I mean, some of these pictures have pretty high resolution. That would be so expensive to store on the blockchain, on Ethereum, if anything. So those pictures are actually not stored on the blockchain, with the exception of maybe simple pictures. I think is CryptoPunks, because it's pixelated, right? It doesn't
Right.
have as much information. I'm not.
Yeah.
I have to look at their code, and I can't remember, but most of the projects that have art stored on the blockchain are very simplistic.
Yeah.
The ones that have higher resolution, they store in something called IPFS. Usually, not always. Sometimes they even just store it in normal databases, but that's a little bit frowned upon because it's not within what we expect Web3 and blockchain to be decentralized, right? If the server goes
Yeah.
down, where's the image, right? So
Right.
that's an issue. IPFS is almost like, it's not necessarily a blockchain, but it's like the best thing we have to decentralized information. Might not be the best, but that's what people started adopting.
And before, you don't have to give a very detailed, but people should know this. Explain IPFS in layman's term to our community.
So IPFS is, in layman's terms, different people download the software and some people are sharing the software, indexing it, holding themselves amongst each other. And if you want to get the software, you kind of can go to different people to get it. It's kind of decentralized. It's kind of like the blockchain in the sense that different people have the information and it's harder for somebody to take something down, if you will. But
Mhm.
it's not completely foolproof. There are problems with it. There's information that has been lost that has been on IPFS, like a noticeable percentage of information. So it's not perfect. It's almost like a blockchain where you can store pictures in large files, but it's not really a blockchain, and it's like wiggling in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I think that's a good way, but it is the collective database that is used by the blockchain technology that is also fragmented against different nodes, which are really consist of bunches of, well, a node could be an individual PC, right? So there's these conglomerate of PCs that make up basically the database of blockchain technologies. How I understand it. Is that a good way to explain it, or am I completely off?
Yeah. It's something analogous to that. Now, I don't know the inner workings of how IPFS makes that, verification that this file is the same as this one, pass it over. I just know that it's doing something there, and you have a link. You have a link that's ipfs.io/IPFS/ and you have this hash.
Right.
And that hash leads you to either a specific file or a folder of files, and that's what people use and when they're storing the metadata on the ERC 721 contract, you basically can go on etherscan.io and find what that link is, and if you put it in your Google Chrome, you'll be able to go and find the image. And this kind of
Got it.
leads to how you can imagine this information could be leaked, depending on at what point is that information shared to the public.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention a project, but there's some I've seen multiple projects in the past where they would
Yep.
make simple mistakes. They would include this link in the smart contract, before, like even before the mint happens, before the reveal happens, and anybody who can read the smart contract can go to that link and find the images already available. Like that's sadly extremely common. And then there's some other
Yeah.
things that are, I guess you could say, going to what you were mentioning, Mikey. So let's say a developer does everything right, right? Okay, we're not going to include that link. We're going to update the link after the mint happens, exactly at the point of the reveal. Now the question is, who has the most knowledgeable database guy who's going to get that information faster than even OpenSea can like refresh it for you? If you're the guy who understands how to get that information the fastest, then you can go to OpenSea, see who's listed their stuff
Oh
on the floor,
man,
near the floor, and buy something that's super rare that they otherwise wouldn't have sold at that price.
Because it has not
dude.
revealed yet. Hence,
Yeah.
what these
Is
guys
this
do.
the next Christopher Nolan movie, like Inception 2? This is
Well, bro,
this is we're getting deep and we're not even deep. That's what's
we're not
crazy.
we're not
I
even
know,
deep.
like this just, you know what it really makes me appreciate though? Because Mike and I always joke, we laugh about the 90s movie called Hackers. But like the people that really understand this stuff are on such another level. And it's good that you, I mean, as a developer, this is how your brain works, right? And so you're used to this, but it just really goes to show that like we're all bouncing around in the matrix and like you see the code, you know what I mean? It's such a different level because like you just said, I mean, what you just said right there about the person that can sit there and optimize that and see it before OpenSea. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wait, what? But it's like, if you're doing that, that's such a massive advantage. And you know, it is interesting because if you go back to like traditional investing, I do remember, Mike, do you remember? I don't remember her name, but she was a girl that used to hang out around at the apartments at college. Um, and she was a mathematics major. She was getting her PhD. And what she was specifically doing was this like nuanced part of math that basically they get hired at Wall Street to upgrade the algorithms that the like massive building size supercomputers use for Wall Street to find out like when to buy and sell.
Don't
And it's
remember.
basically what you're saying right now, Ufa, but they were doing it within the market to try to like they were getting the most brilliant mathematicians to just optimize an equation a little bit to give you a
Yeah.
nanosecond advantage in a market, and that could make billions of dollars of difference. You know what I'm saying? And it's just really crazy to think that like that's really where we're at this point. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. And so the last thing I wanted to, this is a great question, Matt. Awesome tangential. This is a good conversation. One of the things I would love to hear from you, Ufu, is because you don't have that. What you said is so true. So we had these guys on another project you should check out, and I can link you up with the guys. They're fantastic. Metatopia, but dudes have been in the internet since the 90s, have created tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of companies. And we had this whole conversation about like, there might be a couple thousand actually good Solidity devs in the world, right? It's so new. It's so like anyone in this space, 98% of them don't even know how to code. So anybody that says that they can do a contract for cheap, everyone's a Solidity dev all of a sudden, and really no one knows what to do. So to your point, something as simple as revealing that link pre-reveal, putting it in the contract, that's pretty basic shit that anybody that has a half a brain that's a Solidity dev shouldn't do, right? And there's other things like contracts or projects intentionally releasing it so their friends or family can buy up the rares and make a shit ton of money, and they know exactly what they're doing in malicious ways, right? So my ask to you is, give us 3 to 4 signs or things that our community or someone that will listen to this video in the future could do to prove, kind of just increase their knowledge a little bit of some things to look out for as they're minting these projects to say, okay, this is kind of a red flag by going to Etherscan or, just looking at some basic things that you don't have
Okay.
to be an insane dev to find out.
Love this.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. The things that I'm thinking about, like if I were to go to a smart contract and try to verify
Right.
it,
Mhm.
it's not super technical, but it is a little bit, right? So there's no way going around, like you have to read the contract and find things that are in code. So it's going to be a
And
little bit
that's
technical.
fine. I
Yeah.
mean, I would
Mhm.
expect somebody, if you really don't want to get scammed, you can at least take that effort, right? So if you were to go
Yeah.
to this point to just peek into the code or look at the contract, what are some things that people should be looking for?
Sure. So one thing very important is the function for minting, whether especially when you're whitelisted. There's something that a lot of projects mess up in, where let's say you have people that are whitelisted, but then there's something called a require statement, and in a require statement, it requires that a certain condition be true. And a lot of developers make the mistake where when someone mints their whitelist, they do it they do this require statement in the wrong way. So, for instance, let's say Matty, you're
Yep.
gonna mint your whitelist, right? You
Okay.
got your whitelist, but now if you try to mint again, it shouldn't allow you, right? Because you already minted it. It shouldn't allow you to
Yep.
do it 2 times.
Correct.
And why is it not allowing you to do 2 times? Because there's a requirement they're checking something to know that you already minted. Now, what is it checking?
Yep.
This is the magic, I guess you could say. Okay, if it's checking, and this is the mistake some projects make, they check whether or not you already have an NFT of that project. Okay, if you already have one, that means you minted, right? But then what happens if you just transfer your NFT over to another account? Now you don't have it anymore. So many projects had this situation where the require statement was whether or not this person is the owner of an NFT of this project, and then they could just transfer it over and mint again, transfer over and mint again, and the whole whitelist system is messed up.
Yeah.
The way to go around that is just by creating something called a mapping that will see whether or not you minted, and then that's that. But it's like the simplest of things that a lot of people have been able to take advantage of and make money from. And then the other people that are part of the community that had their whitelist lost their whitelists. Other things that could happen is, we talked about the IPFS, a metadata
Yeah.
leak.
Right.
There's also
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. There's also what?
there's a lot of different hacks that can happen. So there's something called the reentrancy hack, but it really depends on how it exactly works. So if you have, let's say, a tokenomics contract where you have a token that you can move around, withdraw, sometimes they can withdraw more tokens than is rightfully theirs, and then basically take all the money out of the contract that wasn't meant to be theirs. But that's a little bit more technical to
Right.
actually be able to
Right.
identify. So I'm not sure if it will be useful for you guys
No,
or the community.
no, these are all great things. I think the other thing I was kind of getting at is like one thing that was easy that you said is like, hey, people are, people are adding the URL into the Etherscan contract before it's minted so
Mhm.
you can get the rarity. Any other, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine, but any other thing off the top of your mind of just quick hitters for people that don't have deep understandings to say, hey, that's a huge red flag. This contract sucks, and they're most likely trying to scam people.
Okay, in this way, this isn't a guarantee, but maybe it'll raise an eyebrow. If you skim through the contract and you see that it's all like the comments aren't organized or anything, it's probably a developer that just didn't like put everything in order and didn't know exactly what they were doing. So in code, you'll have 2 slashes and then like sentences explaining stuff.
Yeah.
That means that
Yeah.
it's a comment. It's not being executed by the code. It's meant for human readers.
Right.
So if you see that it's kind of disorganized, you read the comments and maybe it's bad English,
Yeah.
or it's like saying things that don't really make sense. It would be a red flag. It
Yep.
would be a red flag that whoever made this contract isn't someone that's normally making contracts, because otherwise they would have a different standard.
Right. Right. No, I love that. And that's a prime example of something simple. Anything else till we move on to my question that Matt so politely deterred us from?
Sorry about that.
No, it's
Had to get
great.
it.
I was doing that facetiously.
I'm good. if I think of something along the way, I can like pivot back.
Look at you picking up what we're throwing down. I said that like an hour and a half ago, and now you're using it. Love it. Thanks, man. So fascinating conversation. Awesome question, Maddie. So back to kind of you and the co-founder, you both are starting to percolate these ideas. Already have one of our hardcore community members went through your Twitter, is super jazzed, especially about the refund thing, which was one of the things that raised my eyebrow. But before we get there, take us to that, handful of months brainstorming till you actually launch the Discord, start the Twitter. What did that look like?
Sure. So going back to like what we were saying before, okay, we want to have a seat on the table. We want to be able to be part of the space, but not just be part of it, but be able to help mold it. So what do we want to make? Do we want to make a DAO? Do we want to make an NFT? Do we want to make a token that does something particular? The cool thing about an NFT is that it's a label. It's a brand, and then you can have things under the brand. So it doesn't necessarily limit as to what you are. It's an interesting starting point, if you will. You're and so just by starting off with an NFT, you can get people interested, excited to join you, and then it allows you to build off of that pivot point, and that's what we liked about it. And it seemed like the right time because a lot of other people are doing it. And that's I guess the decision making as to why the NFT part. Why did we choose the direction that we wanted, specifically with AaaFU, the middle finger, the stickman vibe? Well, there's a few reasons. One, okay, let's look at pixelated art. Well, we have CryptoPunks, Moonbirds. 3D, we have CloneX. Anime, we have Azuki. All these categories have their kings and queens. They have their blue chips right now.
Yeah.
When it comes to stick figures specifically, there are some notable names like MFers, but there's not, I don't know if we can say that there's a blue chip yet in the category. So there might be a vacancy here depending on who you ask. Okay. There might be a spot to be taken. Also, it fits our vibe. We like memeable stuff. We like stickman culture by itself. You have YouTube channels that have tens of millions of subscribers just animating stickmen. So there's definitely, this is already part of culture, and there's a spot to be taken. So that goes to the direction of why we chose this kind of an art. I will say that some people might say, okay, well, is this just a meme project? Is that the direction you're going with? If you ask anybody before Bored Ape became Bored Ape, hey, would you take this project seriously? A monkey picture? Why would I take it seriously? But now everybody's taking it seriously. So yeah, we have the full intention of like starting. We have plans that it can, as you guys will hear, I guess in a little bit, we have the plans of how we're going to go about things for the next few years while also being able to adapt. And that's the starting point. Why NFT and why this specific kind of arts?
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a famous meme called Forever Alone, right? Is it kind of based off of that? Do you even know Forever Alone?
I do not.
Okay. I will send it to you. It kind of gives me some Forever Alone vibes, and it's basically, it came actually from a very famous board forum that doesn't exist anymore called the MISC, which was on bodybuilding.com, and it became a very famous meme there for the non-athletic dude that couldn't get a girl, and it was this crude stick figure drawing. And, in like Microsoft Paint, they wrote Forever Alone on top of it. So it's got kind of those vibes, which is kind of funny. So it's got this actual cultural reference that you don't even know existed, but it was a thing on the internet. So props to you for actually referencing something that was a thing on the internet and you didn't even know. I'll send you the Forever Alone thing and you'll get a kick out of it.
I'd love to see it.
So I remember you saying that too. I said, yeah, MFers is probably the thing that comes to mind, but there is not like what quote unquote, I say a blue chip that exists in the stick figure world. So you're intentionally thinking about your art. Let's talk about um, the what does the project look like up till mint? What does the marketing look like? How do I as a person get into the project? Because everything
Mhm.
that you're saying now is really interesting. Tell us more, man.
Great. And so, just to be fair, like the things that I mentioned right now, the artwork, the idea, if I was listening to myself, it wouldn't be enough information, right? That shouldn't be enough information for anyone to say, "Oh, I'm in." So there
Right.
has to be something else that adds enough context for somebody to say, "Okay, I believe in these guys." Maybe you like the artwork, but should that be enough? In my opinion, no. So what's before I guess I go into the other details, you specifically asked, okay, what did the marketing look like? How did it get to this point? How to enter? Let me answer that question. So when we eventually got everything done, and by the way, like smart contract is done. If we wanted to mint tomorrow, we could do it. Right now, we're just going through the final phases of like finding out who to whitelist, and we'll get to that also as well. When we opened the social media, the Discord and the Twitter, it was early September. We already had worked for months prior to that, getting everything ready and our ideas ready. We purposely decided in the beginning we're not going to do any collaborations in the beginning. The reason for that is like, okay, if we start collaborating with other projects, well, we come from a point where we can't really leverage ourselves, not having a community who nobody knows who we are. Usually in the context of collaborations, one would exchange white lists
Yeah.
in to then be able to get promotion. However, we don't like that because there's a lot of projects that have done that, and maybe they had a 4,000 supply, gave away 500 whitelists, but then those 500 people are people that don't really know, don't really care, might be the easiest flippers in the world, and not really quality members, if you will. And that's a big percentage, right? Like 500 out of 4,000. So we didn't want to sacrifice the quality for, I guess you could say, the short-term promotion that we might or get. So no collaborations
Yeah, you're
happened in the
going for
beginning.
quality over hype.
Yeah. By the way, hype is great. You want to find hype. The question is, how do you get hype without sacrificing value?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I guess if that makes sense. So
Yeah, no.
we had so yeah, in that month we did things. We made a gamification system. I've coded probably 30, 40 Discord bots in my life. So we made a few bots over there where people would get something called server gold. And whenever we saw that people were helping us, that meant that we would notice them more and all these systems. And we started getting some people and people talking about us, and we started meeting some other founders without having any like agreements, if you will, but people just started noticing a little bit. Fast forward to today. I mean, it's not a huge server, but it's almost 6,000 on the Discord, 2,700 on the Twitter. And we have a specific process that we've decided where we are doing interviews in the voice channel, one by one. And out of all the people that we interview, which we are aiming for a number like 400 or 500, we will whitelist somewhere between 1 to 200 people. Now, what is the intention of that? The intention is, well, we can't first interview 6,000 people. We have to make it a manageable number. We can probably do within the hundreds, even though that kind of hurts us, like physically to have all those conversations.
A lot of
We've
conversations.
had more than 100. Yeah, it's a lot. But the real purpose of the interview is twofold. One, you get to know somebody way better than maybe an application. You get to like really have this conversation, kind of like we're having right now, though shorter. Our average interview lasts between 30 or 40 minutes. So it's not super short either. You have a conversation with the person, but also you give them an opportunity to learn more about AaaFU. So they ask questions to us, we ask questions to them, we explain all the important details. And by the end of all of this, we'll have a bunch of people that have already been interviewed, that we know all of these people know the important details about AaaFU. We've gotten to know them. And from there, we can pick the 1 to 200 that we feel are going to be the strongest core initial set of holders that'll help make it easier for us to do the next things after the mint that we have planned. I've rambled for a bit, so maybe you guys have some things you wanted to pitch in there or ask. There's more, but yeah.
Maddie, I've heard this before, so I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts so far.
I'm following along, but I'm just kind of curious where we're culminating to.
Hmm. Do I continue?
Yeah.
Or would
That means continue.
Yes, by all means, continue.
beautiful. So now the question is, how do we make a structure that throughout the bear market can be sustainable and can grow, so that eventually 2-3 years from now we can be in a position where we're on the seat of the table? So the first thing was, okay, we don't want to drop a supply of 3, 4, 5,000 and then pray to God that everything goes out right. That's not we prefer to start off with a very small supply where we have these interviews happen, where we can get the best possible people that we believe are going to push our project forward. And then every 3 months or so, potentially increase the supply by a certain amount, but only if the demand is increasing faster than the supply. So let me give a hypothetical, right? Let's say um, everything goes well during the mint and we reach a price. I don't know if it's going to do this. It might do better, it might do worse, but let's put a price of 2 Ethereum. It stabilizes there. Hypothetical, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 months down the line, we don't want not have whitelists available anymore because a lot of the people are going to leave. We don't have anything else to be able to use as incentive. So we want to continue having whitelists in the future to be able to bring more people. But at the same time, there's a problem because if you create whitelists in the future and just give it to people, then they're gonna be people that sell it, and then the price goes down, and nobody's happy with that either.
Okay.
So let's say 3 months pass, and in order for us to generate these whitelists, the plan would be we would only maybe generate another 50 if we've reached 2.5 Ethereum in this hypothetical, like 0.5 higher than what it was previously stabilized at. If we didn't reach that, then the whitelist wouldn't be made. If we did, then maybe 3 of the 50 whitelists would be given to 3 of the most helpful people, and we'd wait 3 to 5 days to see whether or not the price has stabilized or grown. If it has, we can give another 3. Or if it hasn't, if it went down, we stop giving away the whitelist because we don't want to be in that situation where we're just dumping a supply. The only situation where we'll increase the supply is if the demand is increasing faster. So this comes into trying to create a sustainable model. How can we create faster demand than supply? Does that make sense so far?
Maddie's thinking.
Yes. So my brain's chewing on it. So basically, it's you're trying to stay between two mediums and basically use it to bounce between there to say if we either add to it if it's warranted, or prevent it from being added to if it's saturated. Is that kind of the really quick 64,000 view?
Let me see if I could parse that in my head. Can I rephrase it maybe? And I don't know if it will be the same as the way that you
go
put
ahead
it.
and rephrase it.
Yeah, because what I'm hearing is basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to constantly optimize it so that way you can maintain
High
a
floor.
reasonable amount of interest and the floor price. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So the whitelist that we have in the future would be used as incentives to continue bringing people, especially if the floor price was 2 Ethereum, 3 Ethereum. Those
Yeah.
future whitelists would be worth way more than a project that doesn't have an established floor price that's about to launch. So
Correct.
if we did reach those initial conditions of 3, 2, 4 Ethereum, then there will be a lot more people joining just because they know what they could get down the line.
Right.
But we don't want to give the new people value by taking away the value from the people that are holding, right? Because that would be what would happen if you're just, okay, here they are, and then they start
You just
flipping.
dump it out, then they lose their
Right.
value.
And the question on the whitelist is that'll be at the floor price, or pre-sale whitelist stuff is usually discounted. How do the finance or economics work there?
Yeah, so there is right now a decision being made in our Discord as to what the mint price will be. And that hasn't gotten to a conclusion yet because we have a little bot there that people can select prices from. And in the voice channels, then we have conversations with them when we do the interviews.
Right.
But whatever the price ends up being in that, we call it the first stage mint for that 1 to 200. The second stage mint is going to be a higher price. Because if it reaches 4 Ethereum, but we give it for the initial price over there, well, then that seems like a very high incentive for somebody just to flip because they're just putting in so little, and we
Right.
don't want that to be the case.
I was gonna say,
So-
because the only way it would work is if it was higher. So that's the right
Yes.
answer.
Oh, and yeah, and people would still be happy because now they have something with a stable price that they would be getting a guaranteed value for.
Right.
But our requirement is that whatever we end up doing when it comes to promotion, we're getting people to help us, and it's a requirement that those people with ourselves are creating faster demand than the supply. That's the requirement. Otherwise, we don't give, it doesn't increase at all, and then we have to keep working until we get there.
Say the I think I understand the requirement. Repeat the requirement, and then expand upon how you're gonna hold them to that. Because you can say
Yeah.
anything you want. How do you hold somebody to doing exactly that requirement?
Great point. This is going to lead to the refundable contract, which was maybe a better starting point than the supply. So what was the first question you just asked?
So you said that the requirement for them for these new whitelists that are pre-sale spots that are coming in is that they're going to have to help you market and increase the reach of the project. How do you hold somebody accountable to that?
Oh, for sure. So it's throughout the past 2 months, we've had different ways that we were doing it. It could be something as simple as people that are actively helping us in the Discord or on the Twitter when we see people are inviting their friends over, giving explanations. Word of mouth is a great way. But if somebody does some other kind of contribution that we didn't expect that brings an influx, then we also appreciate that. So people have the freedom to be creative, while also we provide them a structure that they could follow if they don't have the creativity at the moment.
Right. And then layering on to that, these new pre-sale spots, and as you expand the community, is it still going to be strictly this kind of interview mentality, friends of friends, keeping it in the family type of thing, or how does that process work?
So when it comes to right now, we're very happy with the interview process. It's done some good things for us. And so we're going to continue that after the mint. Now, if we find other ways, and we probably will because we found multiple different ways that we grew before, we're going to adapt it, right?
Yep.
So the interview process right now, we like it because a very important thing for us is to make those initial conditions as favorable as possible.
Right.
And maybe this would have been a better starting point for me to ask or me to mention.
Yep.
How to get that initial 100 to 200 people
that are truly bought into what you're doing. And now, Maddie, I know this is going to be difficult for you because we're jumping all over the place, and you like to go from point A to point B. But keep everything that we just said in mind. And now listen to this little ditty, because I have not heard of this yet. And this was my real big leg. Dude, that's super interesting. You put a lot of thought into this. We got to have a conversation about it. So go ahead and start from that. Now knowing that you're going to slowly increase supply to make sure the demand is in line to keep a relative floor price to whatever that may be. How are you getting the great, awesome initial 100 to 200 people that are ready to turn this some bitch into a blue chip?
Perfect. So I'm going to start by first mentioning the refundable smart contract and what it does, and then how that plays into the 1 to 200. Is that okay?
Yeah, love it.
Okay.
So what the name itself describes it quite a bit. Okay, so you're able to refund your NFT, but what is the nuance? So starting from the day of the mint up until 30 days after, anybody who has an AaaFU NFT can refund it for the exact price it was minted for. Not just the minters, but even somebody who maybe buys it from OpenSea or any other secondary exchange. So what's the detail here? Like, okay, whenever somebody mints, that money is locked in the smart contract for that same 30-day period. And it's adding security in an insecure market. Anybody who has the NFT can refund it, but by making it so that people from secondary can also refund, it forces the price to not, in practice, to only be able to go up and not down. What do I mean by that? Let's say hypothetically, whatever the price may be, somebody mints it and then sells it on OpenSea for a smaller price. Anybody could go to that, buy that, and instantly go to the smart contract and refund it for a profit. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
So the first thing that we want, what's the reasons for this refundable contract? Well, if people know that by participating in the mint and within those 30 days, they at any point could refund and they know the price can either be equal or greater, they're not going to be refreshing their screen every 5 seconds.
Yeah, you
They're
might as
going to
well
have,
hold it. Unless it goes up, you might as well hold it for 30 days.
exactly, you have this security that you have it may be the most important thing, and you guys kind of mentioned it, why team is so important. Right now, if you mint a project, you're kind of hoping the team can execute, right? You're hoping that things are going to go right. If you have a system like this with this kind of refundable contract, you kind of look into the future. You say, okay, I hope they do well, but you have to see it after the mint happens. And so you have an entire 30 days where the pressure is not on the back of the community, but the pressure is on the back of the team. So that's a big part of it. The ability to be able to see whether or not this is all beautiful talking or whether or not they're able to execute. That's a big deal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike,
So,
Yep.
version?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm doing this for you. I already understand this.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. This is interesting. I am my head's spinning because I'm like, how is this going to work in practical application? I'm looking for like, where's the leak in the bucket here going to be? But so far, I smell what you're stepping in.
yeah. So that refundable contract, and by the way, it's directly with the smart contract. No need to go to like a human being and ask, hey, I want a refund. It's directly on Etherscan. There's a tutorial on our Discord that shows the step-by-step process. That was important, right? So it could be automated. Don't have to go through any issues. So yeah, that's one of the check marks that we wanted to make the best possible conditions to have that 1 to 200, because whoever's joining is going to come with a different mindset. They're not coming with, okay, well, some might be coming with the mindset of wanting to flip, but it alleviates a certain percentage of people that would be flipping due to refreshing every time on the screen. So it's doing some percentage benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have this question just in from the chat. And they're saying, couldn't the system get hacked? And now I don't know if I fully understand this question, but I'm going to read through it. One buys and puts it up for sale on ETH and then buys it with another wallet, thus giving the money back to themselves and the refund and the money they made. So
yeah, I get it.
Using different wallets to basically refund yourself and make money. Is that possible?
So with the way that the smart contract is coded, that wouldn't be possible because when you click the refund option, it's using a function called owner of. So you're checking in the moment of the refund, and everything is done synchronously. So you can't like do two things at the same time with two different accounts. If you are trying to refund it, you have to be the owner of that NFT. So if you sell your NFT in OpenSea and someone else and you buy it with your other accounts, the first account that minted it is no longer the owner, so it wouldn't be able to refund. So only the. Does that make sense?
Yep. So
okay, nice.
you,
So
you
thought
thought of that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to answer the community member and say, you did have a point, but they have an answer.
Yeah. But it's a fantastic question though. And I mean, that's here's the thing. The fact that you thought about that just right now is already lending more credibility. And going back to what Mike said, what are some things you look for in a contract? And you were talking about things that, people who are other developers that do things that are sloppy and have these gaps and these loopholes. It sounds like so far, again, at my like cursory level kind of view here, that you have the hatches pretty buttoned up. So this is good.
Yeah. And by the way, maybe 3-4 days or an entire week before the mint happens. We haven't decided how much time before the mint. The contract will be verified and published on Etherscan, and I myself would be in the voice channels. And if anybody has a developer friend, bring him over. Let's have a little simulation on a testnet like on Ropstein or Rinkeby, and have the person try to break it or whatever it may be. Like, I've already done all the tests. I've had some of my developer
Dude.
friends also do tests, but that's not enough, right? It's one thing me saying, but it's another
Gauntlet thrown
thing.
down.
I
Gauntlet
love
thrown
it.
down.
I love it. And that is like one of the many things that excited me when I talked to you, is because you had an answer for every question that I asked, and you're getting thrown even more questions and you have answers. And then, on top of all, because I've had this conversation, I mean, not on stream, but just with a lot of people in the spaces, the true innovation that has happened in this space so far is really marketing. It is free mint meta, pre-sale meta, application meta, right? Like all of these different ways and entryways into a project, ranking chat meta, right? Like, how are you going to get into these things? How do you build a better mousetrap per se to get people into these projects? What's brilliant about this is it's an interesting new way that hasn't really been done, but it's not just to build hype. It's actually to build a project with quality people, which I usually have yet to say, because you could argue that Ute List, for instance, was intentional to get good people, but from interviewing 100 people, you can't interview 6,000 people legitimately and say everybody that I let into the Ute List is legit and a good person, right? Or not even a good person, but like legitimately is going to be, or at least has good intentions, right? But you can do that with 100 to 200 people. Yes, is it going to take some time? But if you build that core, and in essence, Maddie, it's what we're doing here, right? We're doing your similar process in the sense that we're building content and community off being genuine, and we're saying, hey, we're going to put our content out, and if you vibe with what our principles are, come along for the ride. And that has, started to snowball and will continue to snowball till we build up this, huge momentum that the core of who we are is our brand and what we're trying, what we started this all with to begin with. So all of that is a long-winded way of saying an interesting marketing way, which is one of the main innovators that I've seen in this space, but to get quality people. So that's the other thing. That was one of the main things that really was like, this is interesting to me.
And by the way, I'm happy hearing you break this down. But here's a question I have for you. I think that's going to be important from a community standpoint. Some of the people in our chat, and these are people who have been in the NFT space for a long time. I to be 100% honest, when Mike and I are doing this, we have to be looking at multiple different things, and we're having a conversation with you. And just to be straight up honest, I have to focus on everything you're saying to understand this, because it's different. It's not what I've heard before, and you're speaking you're speaking in a very articulate way, but it's not intuitively there in this space, right? So I have to focus on it. So my question is this: I can handle more data than most. How are you communicating this to the mass like
Good
NFT
question.
space, right?
Yeah.
Because this is I mean, you're a dev, and right, the world, I mean, of engineering, right? The battle is always like the technical people and then the people that actually like pay for things, and there's this weird bridge and gap that of kind of miscommunication that happens there. How are you marketing this in a way where everyone's going to get what you're trying to do and really grasp the fundamental like significance of it?
Yeah. So part of the 200s, 1 to 200 people that are going to be picked, this is also one of the reasons why we're doing the interviews. We have an entire I mean, in the low end, you have 50 to 20 minutes. On the high end, the conversations end up being larger than an hour.
Sure.
Part of those conversations actually go into the details, right? But I will mention that these things that we're talking about, the supply, the refundable contract, they're not AFU. AFU is the fuck you to the world. AFU is the vibe that we're creating. So those
Yeah.
two things, they're part of the project, but there is this overall goal of what we're trying to achieve and the vibe we're trying to create. And these things that we're mentioning right now are strategies and characteristics meant to make it easier for the initial conditions to be great so we can get to the next step.
Yes.
So the initial part, to answer the question about the marketing, we start with, hey, this is what AFU is. It's the fuck you vibe. We're trying to take over the stickman category. That's the initial when people are joining. Okay, this looks interesting. I know that this could work. I could maybe vibe with this, and other people don't. Then people also notice, hey, there's a refundable contract. A few projects have done recently refundable contracts, even though we've been like planning it for months behind. It's kind of interesting, and it does make sense. We talked about predicting the dots and drawing the line right in the future,
exactly.
right?
We did. Yeah, you extrapolated the data, and here you are.
Yeah. So why shouldn't people have the option of having 1 month of safety to be able to look at the future and then make their decision? Why shouldn't that be the case? Like, there's so many risks. It seems like the perfect environment to be adding more safety.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So maybe even a month ago, it would have been harder to talk about the smart refundable contract. But now if we mention it, oh, they saw Black Dust did something similar. Oh, they saw this other one did something similar.
Yeah.
But it's not the same because there's some nuanced differences. I think one of them did it for a week, while we're doing it for a month. But also, I don't think there has been one, correct me if I'm wrong, and if you guys find out about it, send me a DM. I'd love to see it, that allows non-minters to refund, because that's an important point.
Yes, that is
forces. That's a huge point, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay, keep
go
going.
ahead. Oh yeah, you can go ahead. I want to interject.
Yeah, so it sounds like what I'm hearing then is that you do have, I mean, because obviously as the dev, of course you have the technical know-how, but it sounds like what you've done is you've boiled this down to some good marketing points that make it very palatable, easy to digest for everybody else in the space. You know, in the same concept of like, I don't have to explain how an anti-lock braking system actually works from an engineering perspective, but I can just say it makes you stop faster, which makes your car safer, right?
Sure.
And at the end of the day, most people, 99.99% of the people, just want to know that, right? And it sounds like what you said is, hey man, we're doing this because this is gonna make it safer for you to mint, and this is gonna give you more insurance that when you mint, you're not gonna get hurt right off. At least in the first month of time, this is gonna insulate you from some losses, which a lot of people in this space right now would love to hear, right? So it sounds like you already have kind of made some digestible phrases that will help people, even though it's not necessarily technical. They at least are like, I like that. This is a feature.
Right.
Is that right?
For sure. And for some context, like again, I did mention that, well, there are some projects that did some things that are a little bit analogous. That is helping us, because now we can point to them and say, okay, it's like this, but it's different in these ways. And then that clicks in their heads. The conversations, like right now, of the 200 potential people that could get whitelisted, we have about 40 in the server. From the more than 100 we've interviewed, and even it's not super easy for people to even get interviewed because we have to filter through that process as well.
Sure.
But all those people interviewed know about these details, and they're sometimes talking to their friends about it. So it's kind of like
you're creating.
We got
disciples.
other people. Exactly. We like the idea of it being a bit of a cult. Like
I mean that's what Web3 is.
Hey, bro.
I get it.
Bored Ape's a cult. Don't fool yourself.
Listen, man, it's a marketing dream.
Yeah.
Listen, the people pay people like Mikey lots of money to make cults. That's what marketing is. You know what I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, you want diehard raving fans. That's what you want. Any business wants that. And so that's I get it, man. I think it's a great goal.
But Matt, I'm glad go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and like there's an important conversation to be had about like any project can fail, right? Anybody who tells you it can't fail, it cannot. One thing that was important for us is, okay, if let's say in this next month, things don't go well after the mint, then the people that are failing is the team and not the other people. We'd prefer it to be that way.
Right.
because they can refund at that time. So the pressure isn't on our backs. Isn't on the backs of the people that are minting, but
Right.
it's on the backs of us actually executing. And
Yep.
we think that's a big selling point for people too.
Yeah, I
They don't
know.
hear that too
Yeah.
often.
I know.
Yeah, and I know I got something, Mikey. But the reason I asked that question is because, man, at the end of the day, marketing is just so important. And Mike was saying, like, my brain's melting. It's because I have to put on two hats, right? I own and run businesses, and I've had to sell products, and I've taught people sales, right? But then I've also been an engineer, and there's a massive delta there, right? Because just because something is technically sound and good doesn't mean it's easy to sell to the average consumer, right? I mean, look at Beta and VHS, right? VHS was an inferior product by all measurements, by all metrics, uh, but Beta lost, right? I mean, and so it's like it's not necessarily always the technical prowess that's going to get you there. There's many times where the better product is beat by the more marketed product or the better marketed product, and so I try to always think about that. And what makes me happy about it is when I asked you that, you were on it and you recognize that you have a system for it. And by the way, I love what you said about each time somebody gets interviewed, you essentially create a disciple in the cult that you're trying to build that can also go out and essentially evangelize for you, right? And
Yeah.
explain these more complex conversations, which is an answer. So
Yeah.
that's good. What were you saying, Mikey?
So it goes along with what you were saying, but I'm glad both of you have made the points because it gets us to, because Matt, you were analyzing hard the nuances of the contract and that it almost, we were talking about how do you make a project's floor relevant and keep holders in a shitty economy. But we have
Yeah.
yet to talk about what the actual project is about. So
Yep.
when you combine these two, it can become a very powerful thing depending on what your messaging is, right? So we've talked about a FU to the world, which I think this is a perfect segue into give us the 2 to 3 minute elevator pitch on what the project is about. Now that we have a thorough understanding that you're doing some really interesting things from a contract marketing perspective, give us the 2 to 3 minute elevator pitch. And then if there's something you say in that 2 to 3 minute, because I asked you 2 to 3 because we'll cut this together and it'll be a concise way for you to explain or use it for marketing material. But then after that, feel free to expand on anything that you said. So go for it.
Sure. So AaaFU is a lifestyle brand / cult that's giving an elegant fuck you to the world. A lot of people in Web 2 and Web 3 aren't really happy right now. They're kind of like not going through the best phase of their life. And yeah, we're kind of a little bit of an expression of that. If you look at any of the sneak peeks, the AaaFU guy is never smiling. He's always either angry or upset or shouting, something along those lines. That's the vibe that we're going for. I hate using the word brand or community or connections. These are buzzwords that everybody throws around, right? At the end of the day, we are building a label, a brand, a vibe that after the fact, once we've built that part, once we have people around us, we can continue expanding into Web3. Now, there is this distinction between, okay, are you a utility project or are you a PFP and why? We did not want to go down the utility route, even though we respect a lot of projects that do, because then what you're saying is, okay, you're going to be provided these things. And then that's going to be in people's minds, okay, inherently the value of this project is what it's providing. It's going to be, if you're giving a sniper bot, if you're giving an alpha pass, okay, that's what they are. But all of the most successful projects on OpenSea are brands, are vibes. That's what it is. And that's what we want to build. And yes, we do have things like, as a developer, I can't wait for some of the other things that we want to put down the line, but we are not mentioning any of that because we just want to build the vibe first, the fuck you to the world. And after that, add things down the line.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And I've said this on many streams. Please do not reveal what those things are because it's one of the worst mistakes you can make in this space.
I'm so glad you said that because a lot of people have the opposite opinion, but that's the same opinion I personally share.
No, you're dead. I will get you in contact with some very successful projects that will agree with you and me immediately and have been to the detriment of them. So,
Yeah, when you ask the community, they always want to know. When you
right.
ask other founders, they'll tell you, do not tell
Do
them.
not do that.
Yeah.
Just do not do that. Don't even mess with it until you are 100% ready to roll that portion out. Then do it. Um, so I love it. And again, this is another thing that you said when we talked. I was like, man, this guy has an answer for all these interesting questions that I'm asking, which is you're straight up saying, yes, I am building a PFP. I'm not obsessed with utility because I want to build a community, right, that holds value about being together. And it's a little bit of an FU to the world because the world's just a crazy ass place right now. Can you describe the FU part? Because that can be interpreted in many different ways. It can be like an extreme FU, and I'm just an angry person, get pissed off at things, or it can be a funny FU. Is there something in between? Like, how do you describe your FU community? What does that vibe feel or look like?
I in the case of the FU, I think it wouldn't be too deep. In fact, it'll be simple. Whatever somebody wants it to be, they can like, hey, they're expressing themselves, right? You have
Okay.
the middle finger. It could be like a fuck you, I'm not doing well today, or it could be like a fuck you to a friend, like as a hello, or whatever they want it to be. They can make it in their heads to be. Like it's not anything much more deeper than that. It's just the middle finger to someone else.
Okay. I mean, that is an
Yeah.
interesting answer too. Is
I
to
mean, it is a diverse word.
Yeah,
So,
dude.
it can
I
mean a lot
mean,
of things.
I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised by the answer, but I'm also like a good
Yeah.
surprised
Yeah,
because it leaves it open for interpretation. And you're again not trying to um, corner yourself into anything. The future will
yeah.
tell whether that's the right or wrong decision. But I'm sure at the same time, this is the beautiful thing about this space is you can use your community as you continue to grow to further hone in the lore, the story behind the FU. Because that is honestly the only thing that I see missing so far with everything that we've said is what is the lore? What is the story? I know you have a picture there, but have you thought about
Mm.
that process and what does that look like?
Yes, and that if you guys have seen the picture where there's like the lake and the other guys, there's a
It's
little
on
bit of a
screen.
story there.
It's on stream.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. So basically that's a starting point. It will evolve from there. There's a little bit like they have their little houses there. You know, some of them are none of them are happy, by the way, if you can see, like none of them have the happy face. Um, but I also wanted to maybe like take a step back and kind of put everyone in perspective, like maybe make it simple to digest. So we have this thing that we're going for. What makes a spark in a project, right? Why did Art Gobblers do so well? Why did Goblin Town? Why did Bored Ape? Like anybody can say they have the spark, but you don't really know until it happens, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can guarantee a spark. So then the question is, what are the best ways to try to get the highest chances of making that spark?
Yeah.
We have our vibe, we have the cult that we're trying to make, and we have these initial conditions that we're trying to maximize, like basically initial conditions on steroids. Entire month, get your money back. The price can only go up. Interviewing everybody, small community that can be on the same page. This is like kind of bleeding. We're kind of bleeding ourselves in all these interviews, not gonna lie. But we think that it maximizes the chances that that spark happens. Will that spark happen? Nobody can guarantee you that, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make the best chances that it does.
Well, listen, man, couple things. Maddie and I debate this all the time. We don't debate, but we talk about this all the time of, we're, being a media and a brand, which you're going to be doing, like we're doing in different ways is very difficult, right? Because the edgy against the grain stuff is the shit that gets the clicks. But then there's, we've built a brand around paying it forward, being kind, being genuine. So there's a sweet spot as well. And how do you play that? But your brand is interesting in the sense that I think one of the first comments in chat today was like, I'm interested to hear what this person has to say because they're flicking me off. right? That's an immediate great way or an image to get people at least interested in starting to talk. So again, it's very interesting to hear that how you've engineered your way to what image or idea can get traction, because we all know being viral is kind of
Yeah.
like hitting the lottery, but you can give yourself bigger chances for success. And you've obviously put some thought into this.
Yeah, and I maybe could say another, I guess, a little bit of quirky information about AFU that we thought about. I mean, it's all little check boxes that adds to the big picture. So the name AFU, there's a reason why we have like three A's in the beginning. I think I might have mentioned it to you already, Mikey. Not sure when or maybe not. So when Jeff Bezos went and made Amazon, he looked for a name that starts with the letter A so that it can appear on the top of lists that are in alphabetical order.
Yep.
Same thing, I think, with Google's Alphabet. Same reason why Apple has two A's in its stock, I think
Ticker.
AAPL.
Yes, ticker, yeah.
Yeah, to appear above an alphabetical list. So we wanted to make damn sure we appear on top of any alphabetical list. So we put three A's in the beginning.
Well, I
So
love
that was a
it.
little quirky detail that we wanted to add. But yeah, it's just a small piece to the big picture.
Yeah, again, and just all these small pieces laddering up to like a pretty concise vision, which is cool.
And to Mike's point, listen, I mean, and we said this before, right? Remember what we said is it's at the end of the day, it's spin, right? You get to decide as a founder what this means and how this is marketed. And to Mike's point, it could be to your detriment or to your success. Right? I mean, going viral, being controversial these days is easy. Half the time, all you have to do is have an opinion, regardless of what it is. That alone is controversial, right? Most people live in this area of gray. But to your point, if somebody said, "Well, what does your PFP mean?" Why is it just this middle finger? Your response back could just be, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it just really depends on how that's marketed and sold is going to be a large factor, because like you said, there's a large audience. There'll be that kind of irreverent crowd of people who want to have it fly in the face of everything, that rebellious kind of nature. And then you're going to get people that have other views on it as well. And if you let it mean to them whatever, or I guess if it means to them whatever it is, you increase your audience. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like the marketing is a huge part, right? Like some people say the three pillars or maybe four of NFTs are okay. You need to have solid code, you need to have solid art, depending on different people's definitions of art, and then solid marketing, and then maybe the fourth one is execution and roadmap, depending on who you ask.
You
So
missed
like the
one,
marketing,
which is founders, which is probably the most
founders.
critical.
Founders. I guess I'll couple that with execution
Okay.
at the end.
Okay.
The founders
Yeah.
executing. Yeah. And yeah, like the marketing part, if you don't have it done, every project starts smaller, right? So whenever something's small, then some people will believe, and not once it's big, everybody's like, oh yeah, on board already. So
Right.
that's
Right.
being able to make the prediction of which ones at the smaller stage are going to make it is, I guess you could say, a big deal for anyone who's in the space.
Right. Yeah. No, man. And so, amazing conversation. We've been talking for 2.5 hours. One thing I didn't tell Maddie or the community, it was actually 3 a.m. in the morning when we started this conversation. That's how jazzed up AaaFU is about his project. He doesn't give a shit. He's making, he just used his FU to the time clock when we started this thing. That was your interpretation of the middle finger earlier on. You're like, I don't care about time. I'm just going to do this anyways. So, amazing conversation, man. Did you think, does it feel like we've been talking for 2.5 hours at this point, or does it go by quicker than you thought?
It was quick. It feels like 40 minutes-ish.
Yeah,
But
well,
2.5 hours.
That was 2.5 hours, brother. I want to start winding it down, and kind of how we like to do this is give us the next, you haven't minted, maybe give us, and again, I already gave you the advice, do not promise anything that you can't promise, but take us up till mint, maybe, a handful of months after mint, anything that you are excited to share with us and kind of tell the people that have listened to this or will listen to this that are interested in your project should be looking out for.
Yeah, and thanks for that. Like, okay, so I guess I'll say from now and then up until months and months after the mint,
Yeah.
like kind of the mindset that we have right now, every day interviewing people one by one, trying to find that core set of people that want to be part of AFU and the vibe, getting all the way up to that point when we mint. And then after the mint part, we have all the intentions of continuing the interview process for the next stage of whitelist that will only be given if the demand keeps on increasing. We want to have a trial and error system where, hey, the people that are with us, they already know, like from the interviews, hey, we need their support, we need their help to push the project forward. And they have this entire month to collectively with us to tell their friends, tell other people they randomly meet online to join and continue having these conversations. We will do everything we possibly can to spark that fire. Nobody can promise you that fire.
Yeah.
That fire will either happen or it won't. So we're right now trying to make the initial conditions. And if the fire sparks, then everybody's happy. And if it doesn't, exit out.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to leave. They have that entire month to exit out. We want people that if anybody fails, it's the team and not the people. That's how we want it. So that's our plan. A lot of trial and error after the mint and having that security for 1 month for people that don't want to be there. They don't have to. And we prefer that way. We prefer that the people that actually have a vibe, feel the vibe, stay with us after the fact.
Yeah. Love it. And then handful of months after, anything else you want to add on before we kind of really wind it down with our final? We actually have one or two more questions. They're very easy.
Mhm.
Don't stress out, and then we'll say our goodbyes.
Yeah. So like there is a long-term strategy as to what we would put under the AFU brand, because at the end of the day, I guess the first sentence that might appear on the Twitter is we're a lifestyle brand / cult, giving an elegant fuck you to the world. So it is a brand. So inherently there will be things under a brand or things that you slap that label on top. But for the same reasons we talked about, we don't want people to value the project based off of what they're getting, but that will be a side effect of being part of AFU. So yeah, we're going to continue this fail fast, making noise after the mint, and there will be things down the lines once we reach certain benchmarks of people noticing AFU in the space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that you're living by your words and my words, not revealing too much. And I really love the line "giving an elegant fu to the world." That's pretty funny. Okay, so last two questions, and then we'll call it a night. First one, we just peppered you with questions for 2.5 hours. Do you have any for Maddie and I? We like to give that courtesy to our guests. If you don't have any off the top of your mind, totally cool. We can move on to the next.
I do.
Ooh.
So you guys have interviewed like a bunch of projects, bunch of different people, maybe noticed some things both during the interviews and after the fact in your own private conversations.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What would you say are some of the details that you would recommend for a project? Or maybe even it doesn't even have to be that. You can like focus on a specific thing that you think is super important to pay a lot of attention to. Recommendation or any specific focus you'd give as your own recommendation?
In the context of making a project successful?
Yeah, in the
Okay.
context of making this, or even if you maybe notice specifically in AFU's case, some things apply because, but other
Right.
things don't because
Right.
projects are different, right? What recommendations would you guys give?
I'll start with a couple of things. Right off the bat, now this is not your project in particular. You have to spend all of your time in marketing and build hype. Hype, unfortunately, is just the thing in this space. It's very rare that you don't, and again, this is for a normal project, that you don't get hype and then you are successful after mint. It's just very rare. And if you do, it takes a long time, or you're doing such things as burning a mechanism and deflating your collection, or you know, get some crazy marketing partner in, or you know, one of the blue chip uh projects buy into what you're doing, right? In your
Mhm.
case, you have something to combat that, which I think is very interesting. So it kind of doesn't pertain to what you're doing. I would say other than the marketing thing is just it's so paramount in this space. To holding yourself to a cohesive, coherent brand, especially in your instance, you got to be concise about what your vision is. I think you could, you know, suffer or make the mistake of um being too free with your idea of this FU and not having any direction. So I would concentrate on
Mhm.
making sure you have a direction. And I'm not saying you have to have some crazy thorough story, but you have to have a story. Maddie and I have a very clear mission statement. That's bringing back the lost art of genuine human connection. And we have 4 pillars that make that happen, and we firmly believe in that. So, like I said, that line is extremely funny, but you have to be very clear on what that means to you. Um, and it can be what it means to you, and it's left open to interpretation of people that you bring on board. So I think that's critically important. And then I think the one of the things that is back to the like the last end of what I just said, what I have not seen done is intelligent use of storytelling in this space. There's such a huge opportunity for that, and there's yet to be done. I have not seen anybody do it correctly, especially with all the fun mediums with TikTok, Twitter, Discord, video. There's such a huge opportunity to tell fun, intriguing, interactive stories, and no one's doing it.
Mm.
So those are some thoughts, Maddie.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mike's are more targeted. I'm going to keep mine very generic. You asked your specific question was because we've talked to so many different projects and founders. And I'll say this, these are two overriding themes, right? And we've said it many times, and we've said it in this in our conversation today, which is first, under promise, over deliver every time, right? Just that theme is constantly there. Uh, say less, do more constantly, because that will keep people. Because remember, there's Mike said hype is important, but there's hype that's empty, vacuous, so to speak, right? And then there's genuine hype because real things are really happening, right?
Mm.
And so you can control that. It doesn't always have to be that empty. We just got somebody to shill because they have 500,000 views on or followers on Twitter. And
Mm.
then the other thing I would say is and it seems like a cop out, but man, it's so critical. And the things that Mike said are all things that lead to this. But like, it's community, man. You said it, right? You
Mhm.
want to build a cult. Um, everything that leads to that, study how crazy communities and raving fans are created. Because at the end of the day, man, that's what sustains you through the thick and the thin. Like you said, if you have a problem and but you got a cult like following, they forgive you. They give you chances, right? If you don't have that, man, this is not a very forgiving space. And it's hard to do that and keep people's attention because there's so many other distractions. But there are people that have done a pretty good job. And I'll tell you what Mike said at the last part, storytelling is a great way to do it.
Mhm.
Mm.
Listen, remember, at the end of the day, people who don't even like fantasy, don't like dragons, don't like Lord of the Rings, were sitting there hanging on the edge of their seats waiting for the next episode of Game of Thrones to come out.
Right.
Why? Because the story was so compelling that season after season, the writing was so good, people had to know what happens. People who had no business, they'd never read a book. They're not the demographic, but why was it so crazy, man? You tell the right story, people will follow.
Yeah.
And I just think I agree with Mikey Solid. It's nobody has hit that out of the park yet. There have
Mm.
been starts, right? When you think of something like, I mean, even what was it, Goblin Town?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was a
Mm.
2 week window of time. I was like, ooh, because they were so compelling because it was different and they were going with it. but then it fizzled out because it was like, where does it go from here?
Right.
Right. But the idea of the hook was fantastic, but they just didn't deliver, beyond that. But yeah, just that long term, like, where's the story going? And how can you tell that in a way that's compelling is an easy way to bring masses of people in and keep a cult like following.
Right. And I will reiterate the one thing, and I'm glad this is why we have two people on the show and two different heads. Community is critical because we're part of a project called Super Fried Chicken now. This free mint is delivered more in a 3.5 month time than projects that have made tens of millions of dollars. Some of the most brilliant devs I've ever met, insane knowledge, already very successful in the space. The Discord is dead. The project is dead. And we're really struggling on how to figure out how to move it forward because there's zero community. There's probably about 10 people in the Discord that completely understand what we've done and want it to work, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
I know of the project. I actually had bought it. I think I might still have the, the super fried chicken in one of my wallets.
We have some things coming out. We have some solutions, but dude, community is huge. The only reason that project is not a blue chip right now is because of community.
I love the vibe of the chickens. It was. I remember the day of the mint. I don't know if I minted or if I think I bought from secondary.
Yep.
Like everybody was going crazy. Like they were saying, "Look at my cock." This is like.
Yep. That was the thing.
And so remember that, right? And now I know we don't live in a fairy tale world where that mint day craze and hype can last forever, but you have to maintain some of it. And Super Fried Chicken did not, right? And now they're paying the price for that and trying to figure out how do you reignite some of that passion. Even though if you look at what that project has done, it's absurd, man. It's absurd the tech that they put towards it. But none of that matters, right? It doesn't matter because the perception in the community is not there.
By the way, I really appreciate the feedback you guys are both giving. I even wrote down the details of what you guys were mentioning right now and love it. Yeah, this is great.
It's recorded and it'll be on YouTube the instant that we stop. So you can listen to it as many times as you want. Yeah, man, great questions. I appreciate the question.
Thank you too.
And then final question. We like to ask this as it's a little self-serving, but at the same time, we like to hear the feedback. I'm sure you've been in hundreds of AMAs at this point, listened to a bajillion Twitter spaces, or been in voice chats and Discord, like you said. How do you think this experience on Midlife Crisis compares to what you've experienced typically in the Web3 space?
I really liked the long format, and I also really like the fact that you guys, after the fact, are going to chop it up into pieces, right, and deliver it. It's a model that works. So it's like this format of 3 hours. There's going to be people that like some parts and dislike some parts, and you guys have the luxury of just putting it into pieces that you think, okay, this is what people are going to want to digest, and I love it. It's a good model. I think I saw a video of Gary Vee talking about this specific thing for YouTube sake. Like it's a great format. It works. So I can't wait to see how you guys are going to grow. Like we'll see each other at the top.
We're growing together. And I always close this off before Matt gives his final comments, my final comments. I always have to say this. We just had a 3-hour virtual friendship born, and we want to win together, and we can't wait to continue to build our friendship, man.
Same. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and this was beautiful.
Yeah, awesome. So Maddie will do his closing comments. I'll do mine, and then we will sign off for the night.
For sure. So I'll be brief. This has been a great conversation. Definitely relate to you on a lot of different wavelengths when it comes to mindset. What I would challenge you with is you've obviously showed a command of the technical side and the prowess you have in this space, right? You know what's going on as a dev, not only in this space but outside of it. That's something that's very important to you. And we didn't get to talk to Didi, and maybe this is what Didi is like. You're the yin, then Didi is the yang. But just keep in mind what I was saying before, which is at the end of the day, there's always going to be a disconnect between the people that understand how things work and the people just want to know that it works, right? And how is that being marketed and communicated? And I think that as long as that is a good balance, if the stuff that Mike was saying, then the stuff you're doing is it's moving forward, right? And I think this is a good approach to handle some of the issues. You're solving problems that the space has had. And I think that if that is presented well, communicated well, then it can thrive. And so, yeah, I'm really curious to see how this pans out for you. I want to stay in touch, and I wish you the best. Mikey, what do you
Thank you
got?
so much.
Yeah, it's somebody that I feel like there's a toilet bowl or something going on in the background. I don't know. Is that me? I don't know. There was a weird echo. Beautifully said, Matt. Just to add on real quick, I can tell you're a genuine person. I love that you put a lot of thought into this as to what does make a blue chip. You have you were one of the first people that even gave insight into verifications in Discord. You're obviously deeply thinking about all of the different aspects that go in. I will absolutely reiterate, Matt, community is your number one thing that you should be paying attention to. I don't think the hype applies as much to you because you have a very interesting minting mechanism. And then 3, storytelling and brand. Continue to build that brand. You have a very compelling sentence. Expand upon that and make that one of your top priorities. And if you do that, really cool things I think could happen. So appreciate their time. Cannot wait to grow the friendship. And thank you for staying up from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Thank you guys too, and your guys' final words about easy to digest storytelling, community, and in relation to the hype. Yep. Thank you for putting that stuff, rehashing it to me, and love it. Love the conversation.
Awesome.
Been
With
great.
that being said, Midlife Crisis is out for the week. We will be hanging Sunday in Discord. I think Maddie's traveling, but I will be there. We'll be playing Call of Duty. Hey, maybe we'll go to AaaFU's Discord. Who the hell knows? We do whatever we want on those chill Sundays. And next week, we will have some more guests on. I don't have them off the top. Oh, next week, we'll start with Monday and then weekly update in Discord. But we have NFT Butler on Tuesday. They are a bot that does bidding, not sniping, bidding. So you can scour OpenSea, look for deals, and bid hundreds in the second. That'll be a really interesting utility-driven project that is already minted. We'll have a fascinating conversation like we did tonight. We love you all. Midlife